Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to the February 27th City Council meeting of the City of Pacifica. The time is now 7:05. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bowles?
Here.
Councilmember Beer?
Here.
Councilmember Beckmeyer?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Butterlos?
Here.
Mayor Big Stick?
Present. Friendly reminder, if you're parked in the parking lot outside, please grab a parking pass off the door at the bottom of the stairs and stick it in your dashboard so that you do not get ticketed. Do we need meeting participation notes, Sarah?
The meeting will be broadcast on local channel 26 and live streamed at www.cityofpacifica.org/livestream. Call-in public comments may be made to the number 1-650-898-6965, conference ID 383-609-442#, and that will be displayed on the screen when it comes time for public comment. And please, if you're calling in, mute any background noise and listen through your phone for the best experience and least delay.
Thank you very much. The City of Pacifica acknowledges that we occupy the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. We honor the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples for their enduring commitment to Mother Earth. As the indigenous protectors of this land and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. We affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples and wish to pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples. Councilmember Beer, would you please lead us in a salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Attorney, do we have a closed session report?
No reportable action?
This brings us to the consent calendar. Are there any council members wishing to pull an item off of consent? Okay, and I don't have any cards about the consent agenda. If anyone wishes to speak on consent, now is the time to do so. You can fill out a card afterward if you'd like. If you are watching at home or dialing in, you can dial in at 650-898-6965, conference ID 383-609-442#. Press *5 to raise your hand. Understanding there's a delay, especially for the live stream, I'll pause for a moment before continuing. And you're wishing to speak on consent? Please state your name for the record.
Kathleen Manning from the Pacifica Historical Society. And I want to talk about the fact that we're making progress on our Ocean Shore rail car, and that we're going to be moving it to the lot across the street from the museum. And I just wanted to say a few words. We're very excited that we're getting this far. In 2003, we had that fabulous opportunity to acquire the only rolling stock left from the Ocean Shore Railroad, that once traveled on Highway 1. We couldn't pass it up because we knew we'd never get another chance to get a railroad car. All California train buffs would want this car. Well, anyways, we got detoured because we restored the building that is now the Pacifica Coastside Museum. So that took a long time. So after that, we put the train on the back burner, and after the museum was finished, we got back to work on it, and we've been fundraising and doing rummage sales, hobo lunches, tours, etc. And our idea is, and I think it will happen now, I do believe, our vision is that it will be a show place visible from Highway 1, where it once moved down the coast. Eventually fill it with exciting displays and interactive devices, and we know it'll be a treasure for everybody in Pacifica and will definitely be a big tourist attraction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak? Emily, do we have anyone on the line?
We have 2 raised hands. The first number is a number ending in 0119.
Okay, 0119, please press *6 to unmute. Give it a moment to actually unmute you, and then please state your name for the record before you begin. I will let you know when you're at the 1-minute mark. Give it just a moment. We're rearranging our sound system so we can hear you. Stand by. I think we're still trying to arrange so that you can be heard by everybody. Emily, how are we doing?
Calling IT over.
Okay, so please just hang on for a moment. We're getting our tech guys involved to get this going. I apologize for the delay. So we appreciate you bearing through the awkward silence as our IT scrambles to make sure that everyone's voices can be heard. Again, if you're watching out there in television land or from the live stream, if you'd like to dial in, the phone number is 650-898-6965, conference ID 383-609-442 #, *5 to raise your hand. And to the caller who has already unmuted, we are just waiting to make a hopefully quick arrangement so that your voice can be heard by everyone. Please bear with us as we are working out our technical difficulty. Thank you.
That sounded good.
Mr. Jason, are we up and running? Yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, to the caller who has been waiting so patiently with the phone number ending 0119, can you hear us? Is he still unmuted, Emily?
He muted.
Okay, so please press *6 to unmute. Caller with the last 4 digits 0119. If you can hear me, please press *6 to unmute. Still muted?
He should not be.
In the meantime, did you see the beautiful art on the wall? It's so beautiful. Stephen Johnson. That's just the beginning.
Caller with the last four digits 0119, is he unmuted? Please try speaking again. We're still trying to get you on the loudspeaker. Stand by.
Jason, could we put a microphone?
Yeah, can you, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, we can see if that works. It might create feedback. We can try it.
Oh.
Okay, try speaking now. Let's see if we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We're getting there, yeah. Please state your name for the record and give us your 3 minutes.
Sure. My name is Jeff Guillet. I live in West Fairway Park for the last 30 years. And I wanted to make a comment about the California Coastal Commission's response to our LCT. I really appreciate all the
So,
work that-
Jeff, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
We are on the consent calendar currently, items 1 through 9. Public communication is going to be the next item on.
Thank you. Okay. It's impossible to cover this over a phone. I'll wait until then, and thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate your trying to get this working, but it's not working very well.
And I do appreciate your patience. We'll call on you in just a moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Emily, did you say there was one more raised hand?
The second raised hand is a number ending in 0644.
Okay, caller ending in 0644, please press *6 to unmute. Give it a moment to unmute you. State your name for the record, and I'll give you a 1-minute warning. Zero 0644. Emily, have they unmuted?
They've not unmuted yet.
Caller 0644, please press *6 to unmute. So, Emily, what's going on over there?
They're still, we unmuted them, but they haven't pressed *6 yet.
Okay. 0644, I'm going to give you one last opportunity to press *6 so we can hear your comment. No? Okay. So I'm going to bring it back to council and close public comment on consent. I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to Mark Berman for introducing Assembly Bill 612, and thank you, Josh Becker, for co-authoring. Mark and Josh, your unwavering support of Pacifica is deeply appreciated. I'm also very excited to see the next steps in the railcar project. So, assuming that a motion is made and goes through without a hitch, and I'll entertain any other comments or a motion now.
I move we approve the consent. Oh,
I have a question. I put my light on. I had a question.
Councilmember Beckmeyer, do you withdraw your motion while we take questions?
I will.
I didn't even let her make that motion. I wouldn't know.
Councilmember Beckmeyer.
I just would like to get one clarifying statement one more time, just because I'm a little muddled myself, and I just want to be really, really crystal clear. And City Attorney, this is probably for you, or maybe for Director Murdoch, and I'm talking about the STR item. I believe it's item 9 on consent. And the question I have, yes, it's item 9A. The question I have is to do with the number 150. And what I want to understand one more time for the public, and so that I have it very clear in my own mind, is exactly why we can't limit 150 units versus permits at this juncture in time. Now, is that too much deliberation for a clarifying question?
No, but I would like the planning director to come up and respond to that.
You need to be speaking into your microphones.
Did that
While-
make sense?
While Mr. Murdoch is coming up, I can take an initial stab at that.
Okay,
Because it was a question that came up during the session.
I know, and we talked a lot about it
Yeah.
at that time, and I just need
And-
one more clarification.
And so one of the aspects of the program related to administering it is if we already have up almost to 150 STR permits, then we would have to figure out a process and a regime to eliminate people or grandfather them or whatever in the program. And we haven't studied that at all, and there's a lot of legal implications for how that would roll out for people that are already permitted in the program. In other words, if I'm understanding your question correctly.
I think you are. Go
If the
ahead.
cap is below what's already permitted in the program. So we didn't study that possibility at all, and we'd have to go back and figure out and spend more time to figure out how that would roll out and be implemented in order to achieve the cap. And I'll turn it over to Director Murdoch if he has other points to make.
Thank you, City Manager Woodhouse. Good evening, Mayor and Council, Planning Director Christian Murdoch. As the City Manager said, staff offered a cap above the number of short-term rentals that we believe to be operating as something within our means with our current staffing and workload that we could prepare essentially as the near-term fix without going into further extensive analysis that might have affected the rest of the City Council's identified work plan. And so we've taken that feedback, and if the council directs and we're able to work on more extensive regulations this coming fiscal year, certainly that's an area that we can focus some attention on and figure out if there are other regulatory approaches that an ordinance could take.
Thank you for clarifying that. I just wanted to make it really clear that while it may seem like it's changing one word, permits versus units, it's not that simple, and I have to constantly remind myself, and that explanation helps. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Bowles.
Yeah, I was going to follow up on that too, because there were a few letters sent in for public comments asking that question again. And the other thing I've been telling people, so what we analyzed last time was that, there currently 136 permits, plus 25 additional units, because units and permits don't relate, so 151. And then 2 weeks ago, there were 10 more being legalized, so 161, which is already over the cap. So if we went back, we'd actually slow down the cap, and we might actually have more permits come in the meantime. So it's important to get the process moving, and we'll definitely talk about it at goal setting. Just one, I'm also looking at the new language that was added on 9-4-4907. So this is the section that's titled Permit Revocation and Enforcement. And, packet page 125. And it's item E, and I'm just going to read it. So it's under that heading that says Permit Revocation and Enforcement. And then what was added says, the administrator is authorized to promulgate, I think that's how you say that word, any policies or procedures necessary to implement and enforce this article, including but not limited to a process for accepting and prioritizing applications received after the short-term rental cap set forth in section 9-4-4902 is reached. I'm just wondering if we want to add accepting, prioritizing, and revoking, because it doesn't talk about revoking at all in these new policies or procedures, even though it's under that heading.
I think I better take that.
A little confusing.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Bowles. I think I better answer that question, because we cannot, the city administrator does not have unilateral authority to revoke. That would have to go through a due process hearing in order to revoke. But I will say that language does allow the administrator to promulgate rules and regulations that will deal with renewal. So renewal is not automatic. So,
Okay.
So
this language will allow permits to be revoked that are over,
or just
under
not
a certain process.
just not renewed.
Okay.
Right.
City Attorney, correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding was essentially in a worst-case scenario, if we go over the cap, probably it wouldn't take much more than a year before we would say, well, we're at the cap, so we're not going to renew you. Is that approximately the gist?
Correct. It would be a basis for not renewing the permit.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Vaterlaus.
I wanted to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as written.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Please vote.
And the consent calendar passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. So that being done, before we get to public comment, I'd like to take a 10-minute recess to give IT the opportunity to try and troubleshoot some of the problems that have been going on. So we'll reconvene at 7:45. Thank you.
Sure.
Testing. 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 Testing.
Council, slowly start coming back up, please. We're going to start in about a minute or two. PCT, are you ready for us? Okay, we are back in session. The time is 7:50. We've come up with a workaround for our technical difficulty, which we'll tell you all about shortly. In the meantime, we are moving to public comments on items that are not posted on the agenda. This portion of the agenda is available for the public to address the City Council on any issue that is not on the agenda. Any person wishing to address the council shall be recognized by the mayor during this time, provided, however, that only items not on the agenda for that meeting may be addressed. We prefer if you address us as a body rather than anyone in particular. Council members shall not enter into debate with speakers under the public comments on items not on the posted agenda. We can't back and forth with you, so if you ask us a question, for example, we're not going to answer it in real time. Sometimes, under certain circumstance, we might make a clarifying remark after the public comment section. A maximum time of 3 minutes will be allowed for any speaker. Please try to be kind about it. There's a more technical verbiage I could use if things get too out of hand, but I'd rather not have to go there. So that having been said, I have 2 cards. I'm going to remind those watching on the television or streaming online that you can dial in at 650-898-6965, conference ID 383-609-442#. Press *5 to raise your hand. If you are calling in, please mute any background sound and listen through your phone to be called upon by the last 4 digits of your phone number. So with that, I have 2 cards currently from the audience. The first is Dan Stejink, and the second is Anita Reese.
Good evening, council members. Thanks for hearing me. I'm Dan Stejink. March 8th, the California Coastal Commission hears the Pacifica LCP, www.coastal.ca.gov. As someone who's filed more successful Coastal Commission appeals than anyone else in the county of San Mateo, I would strongly suggest anyone interested in that to attend. I think that 50 years from now, the legacy of what you guys do here is going to be defined by what happened with the Native American village in the quarry. For those that don't know, Tamigtac was one of the earliest Native American villages in Northern California, and the villagers were enslaved there to mine limestone for both the Presidio and the Mission of St. Francis de Assisi, which were picked out by ANZA. In fact, they rented out the slaves to the mission there. I want to move on to the sewer, continual sanitary sewer overflow on Anza and Arguello. I'm not a city employee. I'm not paid to report sanitary sewer overflows. It's not my job. I'm not tasked by law to do it. You guys are. You guys are. Many of you have received messages from me for years saying we have toilet paper on the streets. Years, and the city's denied it. You know, thank you very much to Tiger, Jazz, and Sue Vaterlos for coming out and actually inspecting it in person. Tiger Jazz spent a lot of time there. Appreciate it. You know, historically, just a year ago at the Anza Pump House tour, city staff told visitors that residents of Anza and Arguello were lying about the amount of sewage overflow that was there. We are the witnesses. We are the witnesses. Anyone familiar with rules of evidence will tell you that, you know, you come the next day, you come 2 days after the fact, you're not a valid witness. We are the eyewitnesses. We are the ones that have measured it. You've got $16 million and 2 years of activities spent on essentially sewer laterals. You don't have a plan. No one currently in wastewater has any idea what's going on. In 9 years, we're going to be here trying to solve this exact same problem when you come back for another 0.5% tax or whatever. On January 24th, we heard that the smoke test had been completed but not analyzed. It's my understanding from the city manager at a meeting in Anza. It's my understanding that's not true. It has been analyzed, and that there were no significant findings from that smoke test. I'm going to pull a public records request, and I'm going to provide all of you with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Anita Reese.
Hi, Anita Reese with the Pacifica Resource Center. I just wanted to give some quick updates about what we've been working on. We continue to be open Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, 9 to 5, Wednesdays 9 to 7, and Friday 9 to 1. We are closed 12:30 to 1:30 for lunch, Monday through Thursday. We are also open one Saturday a month. The upcoming Saturday is March 11th from 9 to 1. We will be closed tomorrow morning and Thursday morning, but if anybody needs support, please have them call us. I also wanted to let you all know that our next Client Choice Grocery Distribution is on Wednesday, March 22nd at the American Legion Hall, which is at 555 Buell. If folks are not already signed up, we ask that they show up after 4 o'clock and we'll provide groceries same day. In the meantime, we are delivering groceries on the other weeks for folks, so people can get deliveries and show up at the grocery distribution on the 4th Wednesday of the month. I also wanted to share that the inclement weather program through the county is available through April 15th. When it is activated, like tonight, they add cots at shelters and hotel stays when cots are taken. The inclement, like I said, the inclement weather is activated tonight, and PPD can refer after hours, or they can contact us and we can refer them tomorrow if it's activated. We expect to likely be activated for a few more days because of the bad weather. And if you know or see someone who's living outside or in a vehicle, please reach out to our Unhoused on the Coast outreach staff at ucoutreach@pacresourcecenter.org or by calling 650-387-4458. You can also text that number. We also have no-cost tax prep services continuing on Monday mornings, Wednesday afternoon, evening, and one Saturday a month, the Saturday, March 11th. If you need tax prep assistance, contact our tax program coordinator, Darwin, at darwin@pacresourcecenter.org. And as part of our tax program, I just wanted to let you all know that we encourage people to take that moment and save. So anybody who saves at least $50 in an interest-bearing account will get a $20 gift card to promote that savings. And if they've not participated before and they save $300, they can get $300 in matching funds to help jumpstart somebody's savings. So at the end of a year, they'll have $600 to use as they need. So for taxes, groceries, or any other programs that we offer, please contact PRC at 650-738-7470 or at info@pacresourcecenter.org or on our website at pacresourcecenter.org. Thanks.
Thank you, Anita. We'll go to our dial-ins now. If you're watching at home, either by television or live streaming, please dial 650-898-6965 if you wish to make a comment. Conference ID 383-609-442#, and then press *5 to raise your hand. Please state your full name at the beginning of your comment, and I will let you know when you're at the 1-minute mark left. Please mute any background sound you're listening to, and we'll call you up by the last 4 digits of your phone number.
We have 2 raised hands. The first one is a phone number ending in 0644.
Phone number ending in 0644, please press *6 to unmute and state your name for the record.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please state your name, and I'll let you know when you have 1 minute left.
Thank you. Hi, this is Robin Reneals from West Shore Park. I don't know, I've lived in the neighborhood there since 1976. I wanted to comment because I've read the information that was sent out to us about the hearing with the California Coastal Commission about the LCP. I just wanted to let council and everyone know that I disagree with what the Coastal Commission is saying, and specifically about the LUP usage. I support the reasonable policies put forth in Pacifica's LCP, and I disagree with the changes proposed by the Coastal Commission staff. What the city is doing and what has been put forth to the Coastal Commission is what the people of Pacifica want. And we want to try to preserve our city. There is a levee out there which is not really built as a seawall. We need a real seawall, but we do have protection. They call it armoring. Whatever it is that it's called, it's allowed us to have that many residences and that much property out there for people to live, for human beings to live in that area. And it also, without the levee, it puts not only Sharp Park, but Fairway Park at jeopardy without those forms of protection. Call it armoring, call it whatever. Whether it be dirt, whether it be concrete, rock, sand, whatever. We need this. I'm hoping that we can have what it takes to go to the Coastal Commission with this and try to convince them. But it's been done before that this is what's needed. they did it when it was time for the golf course in San Francisco going up to Coastal Commission on a vote for the levy, and they were allowed to maintain the levy.
1 minute.
And the comment specifically for it that it was protecting the neighborhoods adjacent to the golf course. So we need to have the protection again. We need it for this area, and thank you for putting it in at the LUP and the LCP. And if we can all go and please advocate to that meeting that that's what we want for our city to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
The second raised hand is number ending in 0119.
Number ending in 0119, please press *6 to unmute. State your name for the record, and I will let you know when you hit the 1 minute mark. Caller ending in 0119, please press *6 once. Sometimes it takes a moment for it to unmute you. I believe the caller was Jeff Guillet. Jeff, if you can hear me, please press *6. Well, if we're having a technical difficulty on the other end, if you'd be so kind as to email us your comment, we will read them and incorporate them into the record. Is he having?
I don't know. I mean, it's just another possibility.
We could do that. So I'll give you the opportunity to make a comment on the other side of council communications. In the meantime, I'm going to close public comment at this time and bring it back for council communications.
Can you hear me now?
Public comment reopened. I can hear you.
Yeah, all of a sudden it said, no, you are no longer muted. So after 5 minutes of pressing buttons. Moving forward? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Please state your name for the record, and Sarah, please restart his timer.
Okay, thank you. My name is Jeff Guillet, 30-year resident of West Fairway Park. I'm calling to thank the City Council, especially Sue Beckmeyer and Mary Beer, for all their hard work with the seawall project last year. I hope that continues. Like Robin, I've read the Coastal Commission response to the city's LCP LUP, and I'm incredibly disappointed to read that Coastal Commission staff is pushing their managed retreat agenda, which includes blocking the city from maintaining and rebuilding the seawall and berm that protects our city. The seawall is critical to protect the large number of residential homes, businesses, and critical infrastructure that makes up Pacifica. Without it, our city is quite literally doomed. The cost of losing this critical area of our town is far more than the cost to preserve it. I urge the City Council to keep up the hard work on the seawall project and protect our homes and businesses from managed retreat, and to fight for our ability to preserve Pacifica responsibly, as only we know best. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Emily, is there anyone left on the phone line?
There are no other callers on the phone line.
Very good. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak at this time? Please bring your card up. Feel free to do it after you make your comment. State your name for the record, please.
Good evening, staff, council. I'm Chris Redfield. I just wanted to reiterate what Mr. Guillet and Ms. Reynolds stated. So the hearing is set. I still have the December extension that was done by the Coastal Commission on this. The city has done extremely hard work on this, and it's we all know it's a vital, critical thing. And the Coastal Commission, it seems like almost is, it's almost like being in a bad divorce, and we're fighting over who gets the kids. It's quite odd, the back and forth and the things that, quite honestly, when you read the mission statement of the Coastal Commission, that they go against their own statements in many cases. This seems to be one of them. The revisions to be denied just seem illogical. So this was just notified, I believe, Friday. The public notice came out for the hearing, which is coming up in Half Moon Bay. So I hope we get an extension on that. I hope we can have some more back and forth on that to get this worked out in Pacifica's favor. Because as was stated earlier by the other two speakers, it's just critical going forward to Pacifica from many aspects. And to deny that and that infrastructure to go forward, again, just goes against their mission statement. It seems they're at odds with themselves and everybody else. But we definitely need to work with them. It's critical to work with them. There's no way around it, but we need to figure out how to get this done, and it needs to be done. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, last opportunity for any public comment. Emily, anyone on the line? Anyone in the audience? Closing public comment, bring it back to council for council communications. Do I have lights? Councilmember Bowles.
It's been a busy 2 weeks. Met with the Pacific Beach Coalition and just wanted to announce that their Earth Day activities, April 22nd, they're going to have beach cleanups at all of our beaches starting at 9 and a habitat restoration project at Lindemar at 10, and I think there'll be cupcakes. I had my first meeting with the Emergency Preparedness Commission, which was really good, great people there. And we're all hoping that the fire and school district representatives can join us the next time. There was a lot of beginning discussion about emergency evacuation routes. Had another meeting with commute.org, and I'm going to try to meet with them individually. They've just approved their next 2-year projects. There's a lot of cities have programs through them for shuttles directly to BART and Caltrains, which would be wonderful to bring here to Pacifica. They've already committed to the next 2 years, and we're not on that list, but I'm going to try to find out what it'll take to get us on that list. I went to the Pacifica Dems and had a great presentation by Josh Becker. I went to, after the Half Moon Bay shooting, went to an event there called Brews and Views that had Joaquin Jimenez and some representatives from MidPen and an ADU company. And one of the interesting conversations I wanted to share, after the meeting, I spoke with Serena Yep from MidPen because they were complaining about how slow approvals processes were, for affordable housing projects, in particular the one in Mosh Beach right now, and wondering what their attitude was and procedures, looking at the new state laws, SB 35 and 330, that start to take away some of the local control. And she said they actually were not planning to use those procedures, that it would cause more turmoil and ill will in the community and would not be, a good thing for the low-income residents moving in there. So they were committed to a full, robust public process, even if it takes longer. We just had our League of Cities dinner in Hillsborough, and Jackie Spear was an amazing speaker. And I don't know if we can announce what she's up to next, but
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, she shared some statistics to start with. So, she's coming back. She's just retired from her job in the assembly, and she said that our county here, our San Mateo County, is the 4th richest county in the whole U.S., but that 39% of our residents can't meet basic needs, and that 23,000 children in our county live in poverty, and go to bed and often go to bed hungry. And it's really shameful for such a wealthy county to have those kind of statistics. And so she's starting a new foundation to tackle these issues in our county. And so I'm really excited about the political will and connections and so forth she brings to solving all the problems she's worked on. I had a meeting with some of the businesses and residents at Manor Plaza. We're starting to brainstorm some possible improvements to the parking lot. And just one tidbit I'll share because it relates to the housing discussion later. Roslyn was looking to expand their business, but they actually decided to put that on hold because they can't find staff. And so we really have a dire need for affordable housing in our city. And then I forgot to mention the last time that I had actually met Lynn Matterman of One Shoreline here, and I have a special connection because my daughter's an ocean scientist and just interned with One Shoreline last year. And so he'd actually never walked the Sharp Park seawall area before, so I walked him there and kind of explained the different issues along the length of the seawall. And then we drove to Manor to see the recent erosion and the site of the two proposed projects on Esplanade 2. And one of the things their agency does is to work across jurisdictions. And I had mentioned that we'd had a little trouble working with San Francisco, and he offered to help with that. And then I just this weekend met with Joe Samidian, who's considering running for Anna Eshu's seat if she doesn't continue. And one of the interesting things we talked about at length is airplane noise, because he was on a committee with Anna. They're good friends, apparently, working on the Quiet Skies Conference. And so he's connecting me with his staff people to get more information on what we can do, because it's really at the federal level that those things happen. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Beckmeyer.
Thank you. Had a few meetings over the last couple of weeks. The County CCAG Committee, Resource Management and Climate Protection Committee met on the 15th of February. And we had some discussion about what has been ongoing with the change by lifting the emergency statewide, the governor lifting the emergency, that all of these committee meetings that we attend on behalf of the city are going to need to be in person, and there are very strict remote rules and regulations. For us on the coast, it's a little challenging because we're also encouraged and working to reduce greenhouse gases and reduce vehicles miles traveled, and we have to go to San Carlos or Redwood City or some other location in San Mateo sometimes for these meetings, if not further. So I'm hoping for some action or movement on that, some softening of that over time, just because it is problematic. So in that, for me, that is 165 Bovee, is that how you say it? In the Bosca building. I think that's where, it's on El Camino, right after 92. Do you know where that is? Yeah, I've had to go down there for meetings before, and so it's like, wow, I'm going to have to really adjust because, go home, jump on a Zoom is different than jump in your car and get there in 40 minutes. So there's that. We had a presentation from Bay Area Air Quality Management District, and I did have to leave the meeting a little bit before it was over, but I encourage anyone who's interested in knowing more about NOx emissions from homes and the parts per million, PM 2.5. What's PM 2.5? So I'm learning these new terminologies since I don't have the science background. But basically, it's about recommendations that they have and that they're seeking around appliances for residential and small commercial. That's, they're laying out their game plan of what they're seeking to change in the future regarding replacement of appliances. And so this is an ongoing topic. We're going to be hearing about it from everywhere, from PCE. We've had presentations. The county did, in conjunction with PCE, a pilot of a model study of 10 different homes in the county and took them where they are now. What would it take to electrify? What would this type of house that has 2 bedrooms and a wall heater and no electric stove? What about this type of house that's 4,000 square feet that has this? And I mean, they're really benefited, the people who got this thing, because they went through their entire home with a fine-tooth comb, laid out a total plan of what they would need to do, what to do first, what to do second, what kind of panel you can get, and load bearing and not, and you don't have to get a new panel every time you want to get an electric car, and just so much information is constantly being discussed about this issue. And so I don't know what a good way for us to pass that on to the public. I know we have to connect with Pacifica, but if there's a spot where we can place some of these links to information or something, I think it would be helpful, because I can't relay this 2.5-hour presentation at all adequately. It was very, very well done. One of the guys that did it was from Menlo Spark, and just really good. So that was that. And I had a meeting with the Coastal Cities Group. I forgot what day. We talked a bit about upcoming legislation, that because the deadline is coming up to submit legislation, and it's something that came up, I think, at the Democrats meeting. I think maybe someone in the audience brought it up about some legislation that is possibly going to be brought forward, and how would it work, where the state would purchase properties and rent them back, and this kind of, different thinking about how to address properties in danger. And so I'm looking forward to more information on that, because when this was brought forward last year, the Coastal Cities Group was very concerned because it put a burden on cities. It sounds like, oh, the state's going to pay for it. But there was a burden on cities, and I get worried about adding more to our plates. I realize we will need to address it, but we need to also think realistically about what we can do, how much we can do. And so I'll be following that development of that legislation, and I'll bring back what I learn. I think that was all on that one. Then the Sea Level Rise Working Group, which is the statewide group that has coastal commissioners, county organization representatives, and city, League of Cities, which is Cal Cities, the Coastal Cities Group representation. And we spent a lot of time doing the local government workshop recap and talking about, that was the meeting I went to on June 27th in Santa Barbara. And really, some of the themes that came out that day, I don't think I articulated it very well when I reported on this last time, because I didn't give much detail. But one of the themes that came out in preparation for that meeting, at that meeting, and again, we're underscored at the Sea Level Rise Working Group meeting last Friday are issues and themes about building trust. And when we have people's property at stake, and we have the future of our planet at stake, we're digging in sometimes. And the challenge and the opportunity is to listen to each other and to look at what is short-term, medium-term, long-term. How do we go about as a community, in our community and in other communities around the state and the community of the state, integrating change, and how do we make that work? And a good place to start is building trust. I don't have the answer right now, but it's identified as a key component. And that seems a little like, oh, how touchy-feely. But you know what? If you're yelling at each other, you can't hear each other. So that was interesting. Talking about vision, it's very big picture because it has to be big picture to bring it down to small picture. So we're looking at when is there going to be a next meeting, what is the opportunity for the public to engage, and are there looking at existing conferences that are happening in all kinds of different venues. One I noted that I have to follow up with staff on because I don't know when it is there's a planning directors meeting, an annual meeting of planning directors, and there are ways to engage and get on agendas for these meetings. And what we're looking at there, we're not so much, we're going to address the issue of trust and all of that, but what we're trying to identify is how do we describe a neighborhood approach or some kind of regional approach to sea rise? How do we take like properties, not on an individual property basis, but together that are affected by the same conditions, and treat that and look at that? And how do we benefit from other communities that have done exactly that? What has their process been? So I think a term of art for planners is properties that have a similar landscape. It's a different way of writing it for me, but whatever it takes, we have to speak each other's language, really, I think, to be able to learn. I did enjoy very much the Council of Cities meeting last Friday night. That was the same day. And look forward to hearing more about the forthcoming foundation that Jackie Spear is launching off the ground. She started with $1 million of remaining funds that she had in her political account as a base. And she's going to be doing more and more. You'll be hearing more about it, and with a real emphasis and focus on lifting up children in our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Beer.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So the last couple weeks have not been as busy for me as usual. I also wasn't feeling too good, so there's that part. However, I did do things. So I attended the Housing Endowment and Regional Trust meeting, the HART Board, and we elected a new chair and vice chair. And then I'm going to be scheduling a one-on-one meeting with Armando Sanchez, who's the director of HART, and learning more about their operational budget and their upcoming projects. And then also to learn about the various committees to see where I can fit in and which committee I'm going to join, which is just a whole nother committee. Lots of committees going on. But it's really good to be a part of that board and to be sitting with leaders from around the region. So it's really wonderful. We had our Pacifica Pride planning meeting, and I just want to encourage our community to please participate in Pacifica's Pride. It'll be the first weekend of June on that Saturday, and we're going to have a parade and a family festival at IBL. So we'll be looking for volunteers and people who want to do activities for the festival and people who want to be in the parade. So we're going to have a parade. We're also going to be doing some fundraising with our partners at Pedro Point Brewing and Winters and Table Wine. And so we really need to raise some money to get this done because, as you all know, it's not cheap to have a parade, especially if you're going down Palmetto. But we're really excited, and we have such a great planning committee. It's really wonderful to be a part of, and I really wanted to thank our staff member, Alyssa Baranti, for showing up and leading us and guiding us through the process. So really, Alyssa's doing a wonderful job. So thank you so much, Alyssa, for all of your help. We had our meeting with North Coast County Water Department, so we have ad hoc meetings with them, and we have Director Burgett, who's there in the back of the room right now. So thank you, Director Burgett, for being here and for meeting with us the other night. What the mayor and I are really trying to do is to create a collaborative relationship with the water district so that we can understand where are their projects and our projects intersect and how we can be a partner in all the things that are coming forward. And so I'm proud to be a part of that, and I think it's going really well. Went to the Pacifica Democrats meeting. I was able to talk to Senator Becker about some issues that I have around substance use and some funding issues, so I'm going to have a meeting with him to talk about that a little bit more and see about possibly authoring a bill. So that's something new on my radar. So that's exciting. And then Council of Cities, thank you for explaining it so well, Christine. It was really wonderful. And then the Pacifica Sports Hall of Fame. So thank you, Horace Hinshaw, a million times over for everything you do for our community. It's so great to see all Pacifica's finest there, just supporting each other, the Lotties, and yeah, it was a really wonderful event. So thank you for that. One more thing is I want to say thank you to Ryan Marquez. I see you back there, Ryan, and I have watched you over the past few years. You have been such an asset to our community. You're so good at going out there and talking to people and getting information. People like you, so they really want to hear the information you're bringing to them, and that has been a huge asset to us. So thank you for all your work that you've done, all of the applications you created and all the projects you've worked on and just all the people you've talked to. It's going to be hard to replace you. I'm going to miss you, and just thank you. We are having goal setting. Don't forget about goal setting. Friday and Saturday. So we'll be doing the first part on Friday from 12 to, I don't know, 12 to 1 a.m. No, just kidding.
1 to 5.
Well, we'll be doing it on Friday, and then Saturday we'll also be doing strategic planning. So it's an opportunity for the public to come and let us know what you're passionate about, and yeah, go from there. So that's it. Were you going to say something, Sarah? Okay, cool.
And that Friday session is going to be more of a group bonding experience between council, and so if you want to get your agenda item heard, Saturday is the more appropriate time. The Friday session will be here in council chambers. The Saturday session, where we'll be talking about goals, will be at the community center. Mayor Pro Tem Vaterlaus.
Okay. I did a lot of what the other people did too, Council of Cities with Jackie Spear, Pacifica Sports Hall of Fame. Again, thank you to Horace and Marion. I attended the Fog Fest committee, where they're, of course, planning for next year already, because that's what it takes to do a Fog Fest. You have to start out and plan. I went to the police department swearing in for our new officers and staff, and that was nice, very quick. The Democrats, I enjoyed listening to Josh Becker. I went to the Asian American Association of Commerce Lunar New Year celebration, which I think I understood a little bit of it, but it was a huge event and nice to go to. I went to the memorial of one of our people that was really active in the rent control, and that was Tom Thompson. And it was a sad event, and sorry to say that one. Ray Mueller presented at the Realtor meeting, so I got to hear Ray Mueller talk again, and I've seen him about 5 times this week. I was interviewed, Home for All, we did a Home for All public convening. We did 2 of them, and they called me, and I thought it was going to be a group meeting, and it ended up a one-on-one. So I had an interesting talk with the Home for All people. I have gone to every Home for All meeting, so it's an important thing for me. I met with former State Senator Joe Simitian also, and we did preparation for the upcoming goal setting, and that was interesting too. And those are one-on-one meetings, but they're quite interesting. And I would have told you I had a really slow week, because that's what I said before I started writing all this down. So I guess
that was a slow
slow 2 weeks. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. As I generally do, I'll start by saying that my thoughts are with the Ukrainians as they continue to have their country violated, and I wish them success in establishing a peace in their sovereignty. I also wanted to say a word of condolence to paisanos who had that fire around Valentine's Day. If you're listening, we have resources to help you to the best of our ability. I know that the surrounding businesses were affected also. I hope everyone gets up and running sooner than later. I had my first OSPAC meeting, Open Space Parkland Advisory Committee meeting. There was a presentation from Brendan Naaman Murphy regarding the 570 Crespi development. It was nice to hear about the development in a more laid-back setting, and I want to express gratitude that you were willing to be a part of that meeting, telling your story a bit more. At the meeting, Jim Sullivan was voted recipient of the 2023 Preservation Award. Congratulations, Jim. There was an update on the Ani Trail Cattle Hill Workday that was held by OSPAC. I was grateful to be there for that workday. They were installing water bars and more learning how to install water bars. And also thank you, Public Works Department, for supporting their effort. In a city in which we don't always have the money to do something like maintain trails quite as robustly as we might like to, it means a lot that volunteers come out to help us maintain our public areas. And so thank you for everyone who came out, and I'm looking forward to the next volunteer workday. There was that swearing-in ceremony for the promoted officers on the 16th. Kevin, during staff communications, maybe if Captain Clements could come up and just mention the names of the folks who got promoted, and I think there were a couple of new employees also. I'd very much appreciate that. Congratulations to everyone for their promotions. After that, I briefly stopped at the Coast Pride Happy Hour being held at Table Wine. I was invited to appear, and so I was happy to check that out and say hi to some folk. It's apparently one of a series of Pride Happy Hours they're doing up and down the coast to establish camaraderie and raise awareness. So that was good to check in with the community there. I was there with everybody else at the City Democrats to hear Josh Becker speak. Always good to see Senator Becker. I enjoyed attending the Chinese American Association of Commerce Lunar New Year dinner in South City with Councilmember Vaterlaus and a lot of other local electeds from the area. Delicious food. There was a lot of entertainment and a good time, and establishing relations everywhere, I think, is always the best policy anywhere. I had an orientation meeting with the Directing Officer of LAFCO, Rob Bartoli. That's the Local Agency Formation Commission. I attended Council of Cities with everyone else. It was good to hear Jackie Spear talking about her In Plain Sight initiative addressing poverty where women and children are concerned, and I'm looking forward to watching her bring that off the ground and getting involved. There was a Peninsula Clean Energy meeting on the 23rd. They started by mentioning, and Councilmember Beckmeyer talked a little bit about the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. There's a meeting on March 15th, especially around possible rules vis-a-vis electrification to bring down noxious natural gas emissions. So it seems like all the agencies are starting to get involved with interest in finding the best ways that we can electrify our society. So I think this is a good thing in terms of having better quality of air and bringing down those greenhouse gases, hopefully off-putting some of this climate change we've been enjoying lately. As far as PCE work itself, we've been pushing out a lot of information on the 24/7 work that we've been doing, trying to make sure that not merely do we always have clean energy, but we have clean energy on a constant basis. There was a PG&E rate increase that's coming down the pike on March 1st. Generally, we match PG&E's rate and then undercut them by 5%. We opted not to change our prices this round. It would have increased our prices by like 0.002 cents, which sounds like not much, but for us, that's $2 million is what we approximate in our budget. We're going to take the loss rather than continuously following in constant price changes from PG&E. So you're getting even a slightly better deal than you normally would if you're a Peninsula Clean Energy customer. And we've rolled out a phase 2 of electrifying public sites with solar. So we have our project in Pacifica putting solar on the community center. For phase 2, there's 107 sites that are going to be looked at amongst 22 agencies in Pacifica. I think we're just going to be checking out if we can do it on the community center or perhaps the wastewater sewer plant. And I think there might be another location that we're going to be investigating. So I'll look forward to news as to whether or not we're doing a second project in that vein, if not a third or fourth. We're going to go back to in-person hybrid meetings on the 23rd of March. We talked about a pilot to electrify low-income homes that we've already had underway. We increased that budget by $1.5 million so that everybody who's on the wait list can get off the wait list. And hopefully, from what we learned from this pilot, we can scale it to help a lot more low-income families than we've been able to so far with this project. And then we received a report from the Citizens Advisory Committee and reviewed some survey results. Councilmember Bowles had asked me to try to pay attention to that one. I did my best. The very few notes I was able to take down had something to do with organized outreach as being one of the probable results, trying to get more involved with legislative help and issues that might be coming down the pike. There was a question around which group goals would be pertinent to investigate further. And then it looks like we're going to be looking into what state best practices are being used for other citizen advisory committees. Okay. And then Sports Hall of Fame dinner this last Saturday night. Congratulations, inductees Byrne, Corgus, and Lottie. And thank you, Horace, for making sure that we are aware of our sports people here in town. And then yesterday I had my lunch with Joe Simidian. I'd been hearing quite a bit about the Santa Clara County Supervisor for quite some time. Really nice fellow. What was interesting to me in my conversation with him, in his district, there's a massive quarry issue going on, which eclipses ours substantially. But through conversation with him, I was able to get a deeper insight about what these quarry reclamation processes look like, and I feel like I have a little bit of a better orientation going in. So as we talked about earlier, Saturday at the Community Center is going to be our council goal setting for the coming work year, 23-24. If you have any interest in what we're going to be doing in the coming year, please come to the Community Center on Saturday, the 4th, and give us your thoughts. There's a Planning Commission meeting coming up on the 6th around the quarry reclamation project. A lot of strong feelings, and so it gets messy, but the important thing is that people show up to say their piece and hopefully remember that there are multiple perspectives, and through sharing these multiple perspectives as a city, we can figure out what that best approach is going to be. And then, as has been mentioned by several people, there's a Coastal Commission meeting coming up in Half Moon Bay. They're going to be presumably talking about the LCLUP. Personally, I just want to see what a Coastal Commission meeting looks like up close and personal, and maybe get to deepen relationships with coastal commissioners, those who accept ex parte communications. And again, there's so many strong emotions that occur so often, and one stops to wonder on occasion, well, how often do we just start with baseline conversations? Hi, how are you? How can we talk better? And so while I know there's a very charged issue that will be brought up on their agenda, personally I'm looking forward to just stopping in and saying hi as a nice starting point for me, gaining a greater understanding. That's my report out, and staff, be so kind.
I have one quick thing. Could I please?
Councilmember Beckmeyer.
I'm so sorry. Thank you. I had meant to mention along the lines of thanking staff, thank you to Gino Aceredo for supporting the Rotary Club cleanup at the Rotary Plaza area outside the Sanchez Art Center. That was a very productive, as you were saying about the trail maintenance, it's really helpful to have such a responsive staff assisting with delivering wood chips and picking stuff up and all of that. And then a huge, huge thanks to Alyssa Barante and Yulia Carter for the work that they've done in the economic development space around helping the fire, the businesses affected by the fire. And really so often, and on that note, I have to thank the mayor for the morning of the minute after the fire reaching out to Congresswoman Eshu's office, because the Small Business Administration is a federal agency. So, you know, this is why we have relationships, so we can reach out when we need help. And the support has been so forthcoming and so wonderful. As we know, Paisanos was significantly affected by that fire. And there is a grieving process going on for the owners of that business and that family. So we need to, I'm trying to be really sensitive to that and not go, here's this resource, because all things in their time. But we have, from the Small Business Administration, from the Renaissance Center, there are resources and they're being put to bear. I know that Green Enchilada has met with people and are applying for loans to help with their smoke damage and all of that. So just please keep a good thought, and as soon as you can, support these businesses in any way you can. Thanks.
Thank you. Staff?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, Kevin Woodhouse, City Manager. A few brief comments. One, the Pacifica Sports Hall of Fame event Saturday night was very fun, and I had a lot of fun emceeing that event, so it was a unique opportunity to do that and enjoyed being there. A few meetings I wanted to mention. Council members mentioned goal setting upcoming, so I just wanted to provide a little bit of context and detail for that for the listening audience. Friday's session, which will begin at 1 o'clock here in the council chambers, is focused on governance and relationship building. and will be facilitated by Stacy McLaughlin, same facilitator that has facilitated the last few years of goal setting. And then Saturday's session, which will be facilitated by Greg Larson, will be at the community center. Refreshments begin at 8:30. The session will start at 9 a.m. and run until 4-ish or so, depending on how long is needed. And what will be slightly different in this year's goal-setting process is it's really a strategic planning workshop. And the council will be spending some time on talking about mission, vision, and values, and developing those statements, and then talking about goals and strategies to achieve the mission, vision, and values. And it's really a bit different than just the normal council priority setting, but it'll be a worthwhile session most of the day. Public comment is anticipated on Saturday to be around 11:15, no sooner than 11:15 is what the agenda played out as for those that are planning their day around being able to provide their input into strategic plan for the council. Another meeting, another item I wanted to mention was the public review draft of the housing element was distributed on Friday. And on March 21st, there will be a joint study session with the Planning Commission and the City Council in the council chambers here. I believe that's a Tuesday to go over the housing element. And there's a 30-day public review period for the public review draft. Yet another upcoming meeting, community workshop meeting, not a city council or planning commission meeting, but a community workshop meeting led by Public Works staff, will be related to the Manor Drive overcrossing project. And on Saturday, flyers started to land to more than 3,000 residents around the area, and information about that meeting will be distributed widely on social media as well. But that community workshop will be here in the council chambers, 6 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, March 14th, so a couple weeks from now. And the last item I'll mention before turning it over to Acting Police Chief Clements is that the mayor had mentioned our solar purchasing agreement with PCE. So just to clarify details, we've entered into the agreement for the community center, and then the feasibility of solar at the newly renovated civic center, the planning and parks building, the P&P building we call it. First, feasibility of solar on that building will be evaluated, as well as the feasibility of solar at the Clare Creek water recycling plant. So those two are in the hopper to be evaluated for this phase two. But one thing that reminded me about is I had tried to get a brief column in the Tribune for this week, and there wasn't space to do it, but we'll push out the information anyways, probably through our For the Record page, because there was recently an article in the Tribune that talked about a major priority for the council, which is updating our climate action plan, and that's on the work plan to be revisited and teed off this spring. But what the article didn't talk about at all is a whole host of actions over recent years that the city has taken related to greenhouse gas reductions and making Pacifica more sustainable. So I reached out to the Tribune to see if I could, provide a little article about those number of actions. And there's lots of great stuff that we've done. And so we'll be pushing that information out so that it gets out there as well, so that the community is informed of all the actions that we have taken. While planning and measuring is critically important in that framework, also implementing actions is critically important. So I wanted to make sure to complete that, both sides of that coin. That completes my comments, and I will turn it over to Acting Chief Clements.
Thank you, City Manager Woodhouse. Honorable Mayor and council members, Captain Chris Clements, I'm your Acting Chief of Police. On a department-specific presentation. On February the 16th, we recognized 7 employees. 4 of those employees were new hires last year. In addition to our police officers, we have 4 full-time support staff members. 3 of those folks were hired last year. We recognized Suzanne Camargo, who was hired as our evidence technician. We got her from the Sheriff's Office Forensic Lab. We hired Ms. Kim Sue as one of our records clerks. She came to us from the private sector. We hired Lucy Picorna as our new administrative assistant. We got her from Jefferson Elementary School District, next door in Daly City. And we hired a new officer last year, Adi Milab. We got him from the San Francisco Sheriff's Department, where he spent 7 years mostly working in corrections. And we were recognizing 3 of our officers who were promoted. Officer Eric Martinez was hired in 2017. He's a Pacifica native, Oceana High grad. He was promoted to the rank of corporal. Corporal Will Smith joined the police department in 2016. He's a San Mateo Coast native, and he's our only motor officer, so you might see him out there on the motorcycle. He was promoted to the rank of corporal. And Jesus Chuy Aranda joined the police department in 2008. Chuy is a native of San Mateo County. He joined our police department in 2008. He's worked as a field training officer. He spent 3 years as our juvenile crimes detective. And in 2019, he was our employee of the year for the police department. He was promoted to sergeant. So we were very excited to recognize those folks and their accomplishments this past year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That brings us to consideration item number 10. We have no public hearings this evening. Item 10 is the Beach Boulevard Infrastructure Resiliency Project Phase 2 Engagement Plan. Proposed action, receive a presentation on key elements of a communication and engagement plan for the Beach Boulevard Infrastructure Resiliency Project Phase 2A, provide input on the key elements, and appoint a council ad hoc subcommittee to continue to give input to the staff and consultant team in finalizing and beginning to implement the plan. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I just want to take a moment and say that it's been a pleasure to work with you and the Pacifica residents over the past 8 years of my career. I'm going to truly miss all the folks in the city and all that I've worked with. On that note, again, Brian Marquez, Engineering Division. With me this evening, I have Director Peterson, as well as I have the consultant team. I have Aaron Holloway with GHD, who is our project manager, and I have Katie Dulu with Kearns & West, who is our engagement specialist. The item before you this evening is for the Beach Boulevard Infrastructure Resiliency Project, more specifically the Phase 2A Communications and Engagement Strategy Outline. This evening we're going to briefly touch on kind of the outcomes of Phase 1, really briefly go into the scope of Phase 2A. We kind of touched on those things just a few months ago in November. And then we're going to present the community engagement strategy for Phase 2A for feedback from City Council. So just a brief Phase 1 recap. Some of the public input, some of the key public input that we heard was to ensure protection of public and private resources, to maintain beach access, to meet regulatory agencies' requirements, especially for funding needs, and to ensure alignment with concurrent and future planning efforts. The Phase 1 outcome was a June 2021 council approval of a hybrid coastal protection system that consists of a deep foundation seawall, a rock scour apron that is scaled down from what you see on site today, as well as a beach nourishment scheme to widen the beaches, as well as provide increased protection for the area. That hybrid alternative was the highest scoring alternative in the multi-criteria analysis, which of course is in the alternative analysis document for phase one. It is a multi-benefit solution in that it provides infrastructure protection, increased public safety, and still allows coastal access and recreation for the area. Furthermore, we received positive feedback from regulatory and from regulatory agencies and during our public outreach for phase one. Just briefly to touch on the scope of phase 2A, the focus of the subphase of 2A is to come up with a preliminary design for the hybrid alternative. So it's really producing a 35% level plan for the infrastructure improvements, the promenade features, the amenities, the full project as it stands right now. In addition, we're beginning the CEQA process through developing the project description from those 35% design plans, producing a notice of preparation, and beginning the scoping meetings for the proposed EIR. The other element which we're discussing this evening on Phase 2A is the Community and Stakeholder Engagement Program. City Council has previously discussed with staff the importance for this, and so that's why we're bringing it back again and following some of the similar steps that we had success with in Phase 1. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Katie DeLu with Kearns West to briefly, or to talk about our engagement strategy for Phase 2A.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Katie DeLu with Kearns West. I'm a Senior Director there and Project Manager for this project for our community engagement work. I'm going to introduce the Community Engagement Plan and then walk you through the specific tools that we're proposing as part of Phase 2A. And we're really hoping for your input and guidance on a few key areas of the Community Engagement Plan that we're proposing. And those are on the communication and engagement objectives, which I'll describe on the next slide. Ideas for pop-up event locations in the community, which can balance the broad reach with inclusive engagement, and helping ensure our engagement is inclusive and provides opportunities for all voices to be heard. We're also seeking your approval to appoint an ad hoc subcommittee similar to Phase 1 as a method for direct coordination with and seeking input from council members. And we'll share more about that in the forthcoming slides. So here are our communication and engagement objectives. There are 4 of them. The first is to continue to communicate broadly about the purpose and the need for the project. The second is to employ a variety of tools to ensure that our communication and engagement is equitable. The third is to engage with regulatory agency partners early and often. And the fourth is to clearly communicate the project components that we will focus on during the engagement process. And in terms of tools, I'll go through each of these individually, but just at a high level, we want to build off of what worked really well in Phase 1. So on the left there, you see workshops, informational tools, the ad hoc subcommittee, and regulatory agency engagement. We definitely want to continue those. And then we're proposing some additional strategies for Phase 2A, which would include the project team office hours, pop-up workshops in the community. And then we want to continue with the notification methods that we've done previously as well, including Connect with Pacifica, social media, and mailers. Walking through each of these, so the workshops, we envision 3 of them. It's one of several tools from Phase 1 that worked well, and we want to continue to implement for Phase 2. While all the workshops for Phase 1 occurred virtually, we plan to have a combination of hybrid and in-person for Phase 2A. And the topics that we hope to cover in those would include the Phase 1 recap and design overview, features and amenities, and then the third workshop would cover preliminary design. Informational tools, we'd want to continue to maintain and update those, which would include the website and fact sheets. We want to make sure those are kept up to date with project information, schedule, and that's also where we host a sign-up list so folks can track us and get on the email list for the project. We're proposing 2 online surveys, and we would be seeking the ad hoc subcommittee's feedback prior to implementing these. Topics for the surveys could include landscaping and hardscaping features, community amenities, and use of the promenade. And we hope to have 5 ad hoc subcommittee meetings. And that was another successful strategy that we want to build off again. In phase 1, the ad hoc subcommittee was a subcommittee of council members convened through the process to assist the consultant team in shaping the engagement process, messaging, and workshop content. And we envision something similar for phase 2A. There we go. We also wanted to pursue regulatory engagement meetings, so that would include the Coastal Commission, San Francisco Parks and Rec Department, One Shoreline, and the Army Corps of Engineers. We'd want to keep them apprised of preliminary design development and ensure alignment with their agency's requirements through those meetings. And then as one of a couple new engagement tools that we're proposing for this phase, we wanted to introduce project team office hours. Those would be virtual and on an as-needed basis, and it would be including city and technical team to be available to the public to answer more technical questions and kind of get into the weeds on things that folks might have more specific questions and comments about. And then the pop-up events that I'd mentioned. So the idea of these are to go directly into the community to events that folks might already be attending. It can help us widen our reach and gives people the opportunity to learn about the project and provide top-of-mind feedback at locations that they're already visiting. And we welcome your feedback on specific community events to think about for these. Some examples we've been thinking about are Fog Fest, Farmers Market, Earth Day, and we'd love your suggestions on those. And continuing notification methods that we would build off of from the last phase, as I mentioned, connect with Pacifica, social media, and in addition to email, we also are planning to do physical mailers, and that was a suggestion from the subcommittee, the ad hoc subcommittee in phase 1. And then to tie it all together here is a timeline of our engagement tools across the year for this phase of the project. You can see here that we have our 3 workshops aligned with the technical content development and technical milestones. We have our ad hoc subcommittee meetings, which we hope to align before and after each of those workshops so we can get input from and then debrief from the meetings. We have regulatory agency meetings throughout, our pop-up events, which we plan for mostly in the summer and a few in the fall, and then our online surveys. And over the course of the year, that will be getting us toward the start of the environmental phase, and we would end our phase 2A engagement process with public and agency CEQA scoping meetings. And I think I'll be handing it over to Aaron now.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. My name is Aaron Holloway. I'll be the project manager for the consultant team, and I'm a coastal engineer. I was involved in phase 1. And just wanted to kind of clarify the engineering design focus moving forward. So in phase 1, we looked at a lot of different options. We arrived at the preliminary alternative of the hybrid based in part on technical analysis and also public feedback, agency feedback, as Ryan mentioned. So now moving that forward, we need to put a little bit more analysis into each of these projects, or the project elements, the seawall, the rock scour apron, and the natural shoreline infrastructure or beach nourishment. So each of those items will be subject to engineering analysis, calculations, much of that guided by data collected on site and building codes. And so really more of a classic engineering process to identify kind of what is the scale, dimensions, and rock size needed to withstand this wave climate. What we're really interested in seeking feedback from the community on is really, in general terms, kind of the backside of the project, what you see from the land. The promenade, the road, the parking, the paths, the railing, some of the aesthetics, landscape, hardscape, benches, picnic tables. There's a lot of flexibility in those project elements, and so we think that's an important focus for the community engagement, and that will be a topic of certainly one workshop and probably several pop-ups as well. Turn it back over to Ryan.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring it back with the purpose for the ad hoc subcommittee. For the previous ad hoc subcommittee, we had most of the elements that are proposed on this slide. We've added the last point onto this subcommittee as we found it to be a very relevant and helpful purpose for the ad hoc subcommittee. Just wanted to run through that the ad hoc subcommittee is going to be comprised of 2 council members that are going to be provided with opportunities to give suggestions on how to reach stakeholders, how to amplify our notification methods. You know, you guys do a lot of work in the community, as we hear each council meeting. So using those opportunities to further our message and get the word out to the public is going to be very important, and we thought it was a great purpose for the subcommittee, as well as advising on the actual engagement plan document. So last time we did the same type of setup where we came to council with kind of an outline and what we proposed to do, and then later on the ad hoc subcommittee actually is the one that blessed the document for approval. And then the fourth element for the purpose for the ad hoc subcommittee, which is the new element we are proposing, is to provide content and approach feedback for planning and post-engagement activities. So it's really just running through, this is how we're going to do the workshops, or this is how we're going to do the pop-ups. You know, how can we do this better? Is this messaging making sense? Does this understand, you know, do you understand what we're trying to convey here? And are we getting, you know, good feedback here? So that's the purpose, and that's what we're hoping for from the ad hoc subcommittee. Next slide, Aaron. And so the request to council tonight, the staff recommendations are to provide feedback on the preliminary engagement strategy that we've outlined to this evening so the team can move forward with the planning, with focus on the objectives of the communication and engagement, feedback on the pop-up workshop recommendations, and ensuring that this is going to be supportive of inclusive engagement. And then the second ask is to create an ad hoc subcommittee starting in March 2023, appointing Councilmember Beer and Councilmember Beckmeyer for continuity with Phase 1. Councilmember Beer and Beckmeyer have the history on the project as well as understanding of how the Phase 1 ad hoc was conducted and run and how our team is run. And so we thought that it made sense for continuity purposes to make that recommendation. Additionally, within that, creating the ad hoc subcommittee, giving them the authority to approve the communication and engagement plan after their review, and ensuring that any feedback that is given this evening is included in that plan. So with that, this concludes the staff report, and we'd open it up for questions and feedback.
Thank you very much. I'll probably say this again before this item is over, but Ryan, you are very much going to be missed.
Thank you.
Okay, council questions. Let's start with Councilmember Beckmeyer.
Ryan, really? Really? I know. Very happy for you. Just a couple of questions. There may be more that come up, but one of the things I want to say, I really like the project team office hours concept. I didn't envision it in exactly that way, but I think it really addresses what we were imparting to you about the need for the community to engage and have an opportunity to ask their questions on a deeper level. So I think that's terrific. Do we have, I know it's in the weeds a little bit. Do we know where we're going to do that? Would it be here? Would it be at?
Councilmember Beckmeyer, if I could augment your question just a touch, if you could elaborate on what those office hours mean simultaneous with answering your question.
Is that okay?
Sure, yeah, I can take that and then I'll pass it over
You want to do that?
Katie too.
Or do you want me to? Mayor?
Huh?
Were you asking me or were you asking staff?
I was asking staff. I was adding on to your question. Yes.
So the office hours are, we're envisioning them to be online virtual. So somebody can sign up online and say, hey, I'd like to talk to the team about this specific element. And we're envisioning them to be aligned with project milestones. So like, let's say somebody came to a workshop and they're still, really confused why we're bringing in, a certain number, of rocks or a certain design element that perhaps it's getting too into the weeds to talk about during a workshop, or is throwing off kind of the flow of it. We say, well, why don't you sign up for the office hours, come and we'll discuss more. So we're envisioning that to align with some of the workshops and to be, 1 to 2 hours virtual where you have to sign up and give us very specific of what you want to talk about, and then we can make sure the appropriate staff and project team members are there to discuss that. Does that cover it, you guys?
Yeah, I think that's great. I've used them on other projects, and it's a really great way to be able to spend some one-on-one time with people who have a lot more interest and really want to dig deep into the technical components. So glad you appreciate the idea.
And you said just virtual?
Yeah, virtual was the plan.
You might consider adding one session that's in person for our community who aren't necessarily as tech savvy. Councilmember, did you have anything else, Councilmember Beck?
No, it's okay. I have a couple more things, but I can take it up after public comment.
Yeah, just questions.
We're just asking
Councilmember Bowles.
clarifying questions right now, right?
Yeah, please.
Thank you all, and Ryan, we will miss you. So I attended all the Beach Boulevard meetings as well, and one thing I'm a little confused on, and just in terms of where we are in the process and what decisions we can still be looking at as we move forward. On packet page 134 says the focus of engagement is on the landscape, the beach access, and the amenities. I remember there was a good deal of public interest in one of the survey questions as we were looking at the plaza of perhaps moving the seawall inland and actually having a bigger beach there. So that and, some of the ideas about maybe having double walls so that they don't have to be as high. These are kinds of things that the community, if they're still open to consideration, that the community might want input on. So I'm just curious if those things are still in the possible, bag of tricks that we might consider as we move forward.
Yeah, certainly, great question. I'm happy to take a stab, and then I'll look to Aaron to confirm. But I believe that a lot of how we deal with the transition behind the seawall with the height changes, I think, are still very much in play of design, and we can make sure that that's something that the community agrees with how we're handling that. I think the eventual alignment, the actual placement east and west is something that is going to be harder to get public feedback on. I think that's going to be driven a lot by regulatory.
Yeah, but I think what we need to do is take a closer look at the different segments of seawall. I think in phase one, we were kind of looking, across the whole reach. What are some of these general strategies that we think are going to be effective? But now we want to take a closer look, at the different areas north of the pier, south of the pier, including, where exactly this wall goes relative to the existing wall. In some cases, it may make more sense to relocate it in a more landward position for regulatory reasons, also cost reasons. I think those strategies you mentioned, like the wall alignment, moving from its current position or, secondary walls are still part of this kind of design process.
And if I could just jump in too, I think that's also just sort of highlights the beauty of these office hours, right? So folks that really want to get into some of those more technical details, that would be a great opportunity for them to talk about that, because others that might just be a little bit, beyond what they're wanting to comment on, and that was the whole point of those office hours.
And then just one more question on the beach nourishment. I know that that's something that the Coastal Commission would, prefer in terms of being able to maintain access and so forth. At the meeting when the council approved this particular hybrid option that included the sand nourishment, there was a lot of concern expressed about the ability to get sand, how often we'd have to, replace it and so forth. So and how much that would cost us, over the life of the wall. Are those things that will be analyzed in more detail? So we'll understand, I know this is a very active coast, how, what's really realistic about, the keeping of the sand in place?
Yes, absolutely. That's going to be looked at a lot closer in this subphase.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Beer.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to clarify that what we're talking about tonight, and just correct me if I'm wrong, is the community engagement piece, the outreach, not the decisions that are going to be made about the design, correct? So the ad hoc committee is going to specifically be working on community engagement, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not seeing any other lights right now. I had so generally speaking, I send in some questions ahead of time, and I created my email and then forgot to hit the send button. So this is going to sound like the most simplistic question you've ever heard. It's the kind of thing I like to get out of the way ahead of time so that it's just that little nuance thing that I don't have to bother bringing up. Is this ad hoc being considered only for sub-phase 2A, or is it being considered for the entire phase 2?
I believe we're proposing it just for 2A at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. And then my only other question was, you mentioned 2 surveys to reach a wider audience. That doesn't mean the flash surveys, does it? It's a more regular style survey?
We haven't committed to a platform, but I don't believe we're looking at the flash survey at this point.
Okay, well, that gives me an opportunity to give feedback when we have the deliberation portion of this item. Thank you. Any other council questions? If not, let's move on to public comment. So far, I have 1 card from Jim Kramer on this item. If anybody in the audience would like to speak on this item, please fill out one of those yellow cards in the back and bring it up. We'll be happy to call on you. For those watching either online or watching the television, please dial 650-898-6965. Conference ID 383-609-442#. *5 to raise your hand. Please state your full name at the start of your comment, and I'll let you know when you only have 1 minute left of your 3 minutes. And if you are calling in, please mute any background sound like the television and listen through your phone to be called up by the last 4 digits of your phone number. Mr. Kramer.
Yes, hi, I'm Jim Kramer I live in the Sharp Park area. I was listening at home and I decided I better go over here in case the phones continue to not work. I'm glad to be here and I learned a lot more in the presentation in person, I'm sure. I discovered that I submitted the comments I'm about to give to the wrong email address, so it wouldn't be able to be in the packet. I suspect some of the council may have gotten it earlier today, but I decided to go ahead and read it into the record now because I know a lot of you have lots to do before the meeting and maybe didn't get a chance to see it.
And please speak more directly into the mic. I'm not
sorry.
sure if we're picking you up.
I was trying to keep it out of my line of sight. Did you hear all that?
Yeah.
Okay, this was to council members and Manager Woodhouse. I have a comment on item number 10, the phase 2 engagement, appropriately enough. As we know, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding the BBIRP. Effective public outreach and communication is very important going forward, and I support the continuation of the ad hoc subcommittee. However, I admit I'm a bit puzzled by the recommendation to appoint both previous members, and I'll qualify that in just a second, but I want to stick with my script. Both Beer and Beckmeyer served effectively. With while previous participation is relevant, the BBIRP most directly affects District 2. It seems clear that District 2's recently elected councilperson should be as directly involved as possible going forward, especially with the focus being on engagement. In her campaign, Christine Bowles built personal connections with a large fraction of her constituents, and the election was decisive. I hope that you will reconsider reconsider the decision that's upcoming. Her recent election and the proximity of her district make Christine a logical choice. And I'll add that new perspectives and a diversity of views must be an important aspect on such committees. And then just hearing that both the consultants and Manager Woodhouse, have recommended the two previous ones be reappointed for continuity. I think continuity is important, but these other arguments seem important to me. Maybe a nice out-of-the-box solution is to have 3 people instead of 2. I wonder if people would be open to that. I have nothing opposed to the 2 people who took before, but I think Christine deserves a chance to work directly on this for her constituents. Thank you for all you do. The recounting of all of your communications, staff, and council is always overwhelming to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. So we'll go over to our phone line, though if anyone in the audience wishes to, okay, I see a card coming up. Come on up. If anyone else wishes to speak, please fill out your card and bring it to staff sooner than later so I can call upon you. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, council members. My name is Kimberly Finale. I am a grateful member of
And
this
please speak into the mic.
Kimberly Finale. Good evening. I'm a grateful member of this wonderful community, and I hadn't planned on standing up to take any position this evening. However, I would like to second the opinion of the prior community member just standing here speaking regarding District 2 Councilwoman Bowles having an opportunity to serve on the ad hoc subcommittee on this topic. She is our representative and deserves an opportunity to take part in this outreach. So I hope that you all would consider giving her the opportunity if she would like to have the opportunity. And secondly, quickly, I just had an idea regarding a pop-up. Where is it? What did I do with it here? One of your pop-up reach out. What was it called? One of your for engagement, community engagement pop-up. There's so many folks that are strolling along the current location of the seawall in Sharp Park. The weekends are so busy down there. Perhaps just a busy weekend. I mean, it's just packed with folks all day. Pick your time, and you can't go wrong. It just seems like that would be a perfect opportunity for an actual pop-up. Just pick a weekend and show up, and people are going to be there having a great afternoon, morning, or evening. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. And if you could please bring that card to us. Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else from the audience right now, perhaps on the other side of the call-ins, do we have any call-ins, Ms. Emily?
We have one raised hand. It is for a number ending in 6822.
Okay, number ending in 6822, please press star 6 to unmute. After you press star 6, give it a moment. Give us your full name for the record, and I will tell you when you have 1 minute left. Caller with last 4 digits ending 6822, please press star 6 to unmute.
They have to press star 6.
Come again?
They still need to press star 6.
Caller with the last 4 digits 6822, if you press star 6, we will be able to hear you.
Hello?
Hello, please state your name for the record. I'll tell you when you have 1 minute left.
Hi, my name is Mark Hubble, and I have a few questions. One of those is there's a lot of geologists, top name geologists, who don't think that the seawall is such a good idea. And my question is, are we engaging a independent qualified geologists for an opinion on this project. It's pretty much well known that seawalls make a lot of changes to the shoreline, both up and down the shoreline, and it would be nice, and I think it would be very beneficial to everybody to understand what those changes are. So I'm really concerned about that. Back when the city was doing the project at Esplanade, to go down there, I had asked if there was a city had a geologist they used, and the geologist they used was an employee of the construction company. Well, we can all see now that's a disaster down there. It's awful, and it costs a lot of money. This is going to cost a real lot of money, and I think we need a top-notch geologist, because what we're doing here is, I feel for the people that live there, but it's not a battle between them and the Coastal Commission. It should be, here's science, here's the best solution. And that's what I think is very important to do right now. So thank you for your time. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Hubble. Do we have any other hands raised on the phone?
No.
And I have no further cards. I have one further card. Chris Redfield.
Good evening again, staff, council, Chris Redfield. I just want to say I think this is a fantastic idea. I think the engagement has been somewhat, unless you're thoroughly engaged, a lot of the public isn't aware of a lot of things that go on in the city. Sadly, they should be. So I really appreciate the ongoing, and I hear Mr. Ryan is leaving our midst. That's I hope for greener pastures, good stuff. But yes, we do need that engagement. I think that's critical. I know we had an engagement, I can't remember what it was a hybrid meeting, and it reminded me of the Brady Bunch scene where you had all the boxes. It was very confusing. So I'm hoping we can have a little bit more. For myself personally, it was tough. But yeah, as was suggested, maybe a 3-person ad hoc committee is not a bad idea. 2-person is obviously worked. It seemed to be well accepted. I think until we get to the design phase, this is a critical thing to get the city of Pacifica on board with this. This is it's the biggest public works project, obviously, that the city's had and will have, hopefully, for a long, long time. But I think that engagement is just such a critical factor for all aspects of it. I know it had been mentioned, people along the promenade or whatever during just a public day, just a busy, nice day in Pacifica. I think it's more important for Pacificans rather than out-of-towners per se. The use is the same, but that's a stakeholder. When you have a local Pacifican or, somebody in town, that's who's paying for it in the first place. So the use is definitely by all and meant for all, but I think it should be somewhat limited to, it's good to have outside opinion also, because you're going to get an objective opinion that may not be biased on that. So that's it. Just wanted to add, I think it's a great idea. Continue that engagement, and from every aspect, the more information we can get out to the public to go forward with this, and the more questions asked and answered are critical to it. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Redfield. Okay, anybody left on the line? Any other speakers in the audience want to come up? Going once, going twice. We are going to now close the public comments and bring it back to council for deliberation. I heard and thought myself the pop-up at the pier idea was a wonderful idea, so stick that on the list. And just for clarity's sake, the answer is no, we cannot do a 3-person ad hoc. I don't know if City Attorney wants to talk about Brown Act for a moment and why specifically we cannot have a 3-person ad hoc.
Right. The choice for the council tonight in terms of the ad hoc is if the council wants to delegate consideration of community engagement or, other tasks for Phase 2A, they can only do it by a 2-member ad hoc committee. Otherwise, it would have to be a notice regular meeting or regular or special meeting of the full council under the Brown Act.
Thank you, Mayor.
There you have it.
Thank you very much. You can borrow this next time if you need. Okay, so Councilmember Bowles.
Thanks, Tiger. I really appreciate what you're bringing forth before us today, and as we've said, engagement is so critical, and as Sue Beckmeyer said, the ability to have open, honest conversations and to build trust among our community on these very difficult issues is so important. And I've heard from several people now, including actually Joe Simidian this weekend, that you know, as we look to grant funding for this very expensive project, it's important for agencies and our government to see that that there is consensus behind the project in the community, and then also just the fact that the whole city is being asked to pay for this. It's just really important. I really appreciate the mailers to the whole city and communication with as many people as possible so that we can help build consensus moving forward. So I have a few comments and suggestions about the engagement piece, but I do want to address the ad hoc committee and just say that I would very much like to be on this committee. Thank you for Jim and Kimberly, who I just met. So when I was running for office, I brought the district map, and I just found it was really interesting because District 2, which is what I now represent, includes the first 2 blocks in Sharp Park, but it also includes, you can see the blue going all the way down, the seawall past the pier and past this building too, all the way to Birch Lane. So I've been knocking on all these doors and meeting with people, and I've been deeply engaged in all the meetings and know the issues around it. I know my constituents in the Shoreview neighborhood are also concerned about this project.
I think you might be inadvertently pressing the button at the
Sorry,
base.
I pushed the wrong button with my notebook. Yeah, so, you know, when the first ad hoc committee was formed, we did not yet have district elections for District 2. And I know on other issues, like the sewage issues and ANZA, it was important for, you know, I'd offered to go meet with those neighbors too, and it was decided that the council members who represented that district were better suited to meet with them and city staff. So like I said, I've been very involved in all the meetings, so I don't need to do any catch-up on that. I've read all the technical documents, including our sea level rise vulnerability assessment and the regional sediment management plan, which is critical for the sand nourishment piece that we were discussing earlier. And I also asked a lot of hard technical questions, and I would really appreciate the opportunity to be in these meetings with a consultant to talk about the engagement. But also maybe a little bit more technically too, which we don't necessarily have the opportunity. And then just as an architect, this is something I do in my work all the time, to take things that are very difficult to understand technically and break them down to explain to the public. And I think that's something I'm pretty good at, so I think I'd be a valuable asset for that. And then also just in terms of social media, I think I'm the most active council member on social media, and I've been using multiple platforms, Facebook, Nextdoor, and Instagram, to educate the public on a number of issues for a couple of years now, and I really want to continue that work on this project too. So I'll leave that, and then I have other, comments, but I'll let other people talk first.
Councilmember Beckmeyer.
On the project outline, I'm looking at I'm looking at, give me a second, too many pages. Here, on packet page 150. So I know that this document that we have is the document that was submitted in the beginning and the intent always was, am I talking loud enough, can you hear me? That there were phases, and this is the next phase that we're moving into, which is why this document is dated 2020. One of the things that I wanted to ask about, though, because I don't remember talking about this, and I'm hoping you can flesh it out for me a little, is on packet page 150 in the green box, where it talks about additional engagement activities to consider. It looks to me like these were recommendations for this next phase. And I wanted to zero in on the community working group suggestion item and find out from you if there was thought about when is the appropriate time for such a group, because in this community, I think there needs to be one. I just don't know when exactly is the right time. Of course, like always is the right time, but realistically, folding into planning and getting the community's input, I realize at this stage the pop-ups work well and such. But if you could talk a little bit about community working group and what that entails.
Yeah, you're correct that this is the plan from phase 1, and we plan to update this plan as part of phase 2 and phase 2A. These were, with my recollection, and it's been, I think, 2.5 years, that the community working group was possibly an advisory role group that could be undertaken in the feasibility phase as a broader kind of discussion. And now that we're more focused into the design aspect of actual alternative, the team did not see that as an appropriate measure at this time.
Got it.
Questions, comments?
I know Christine had more.
Yeah,
You wanted to
I
share
was
the
going
floor.
to let other people ask first.
Certainly, Councilmember Bowles.
I too really appreciate the addition of the project team office hours. Because we have so many well-qualified people in our community, coastal engineers and ocean scientists like Jim here, who really do want to dig into the weeds. And this was my frustration as a member of the public the last time, and having a lot of questions that I didn't feel got answered. And I'm pleased that I can get them answered now on council, but it would be nice for other members of the public to that really want to dig in to really be able to ask those questions. So I really appreciate that. And just want to add that just because somebody asks difficult questions doesn't mean that they're necessarily against the project. It's just we really want to dig in and make sure we understand. You know, this is a big commitment and a big change to our community. So I love the idea of the pop-up on the berm also. I wanted to ask if we could maybe consider adding signage to other public buildings, the city hall, the libraries, maybe flyers inside the chit chat that are right there on the pier. For the postcard, I think this happened before with one of the notices this year, but if we're having all of these meetings, it would be really important, and we're only sending out one postcard, because I know that's very expensive to do the whole city, just to make sure that we're really finalized on all the dates before we send that out, because there are a number of people in the community that don't necessarily get the email updates that aren't connected, and so the print is very important. And then part of the frustration I heard in the first section is that, you know, the renderings were all nice, like, you know, but kind of bird's eye view, and the sections that you just showed us now as possible, you know, raised paths and so forth aren't really easy for the general public to understand. And so I really want to ask for renderings that are, you know, from the view of the people walking in different areas along Beach Boulevard, but also from Palmetto, because one of my concerns is that, you know, if we're looking at a 5-foot high wall or even taller with some of these ramps and stairs to move the path up, that we're really losing the visual connection from Sharp Park to the ocean. And then that might be a deterrent to some of the businesses and so forth, because that's, you know, what attracts people there. I like the idea of a community working group too. You know, if that was possible to consider. Yeah, I think that's all for now. Thanks.
Councilmember Beckmeyer.
Did you want to speak?
I did not turn my light on, but I would like to, if that's okay. Sorry, Tiger. I mean, Mayor. Sorry, Mayor.
To the gentlewoman from District 3.
Thank you.
Please speak into the
Sarah,
microphone
would
when
you-
you use terminology that eloquent, because everybody deserves to. Councilmember Beer.
Sarah, would you mind putting up on the screen just the things that we're supposed to be giving feedback so we stay on track with that? Because I understand that it's a really huge project, and there's a lot of information that needs to go out to our public, and I understand like the need to ask the technical questions, but I think I just need to keep bringing it back to that this is about community outreach. And so I fear, I just want to make sure that that's completely understood, that that's what the ad hoc committee is about. And so if you're going to go into an ad hoc committee thinking that you're going to be able to get all of your technical questions answered during this time when you're supposed to be concentrating on outreach, I think that could be a hindrance. So I just wanted to make sure that I said that out loud. Yes. I am perfectly happy sharing leadership. I believe in shared leadership. So I don't have a problem doing that at all. I do think that we need representation from across the districts. So having said that, if I was not to be a part of this, which again, I'm happy to share leadership. I just want to make sure that the parameters of the ad hoc subcommittee are super clear so that the time is spent where it's supposed to be spent for this subcommittee. Because all those other things can get answered in other ways. And that's why you were elected, because that's what our community wants you to do. So don't get me wrong. I'm super glad that you're here. But for this, I just wanted to make sure, because I did participate before, and so it was really important for us to use the time that we spent together to make sure that we were giving our feedback so that the engagement could happen. And so I just wanted to make sure I said that. And I do think that Councilmember Beckmeyer is always a good person to have on a subcommittee when you're talking about outreach, because she's really good at it. So having said that, like I said, I'm happy to share leadership. Yeah, just as long as you hear me.
I do hear you, and, and I understand your concern, and I think, no, and you're right, there'll be a different place for asking the real technical questions. It's really technical questions in the sense of making sure that the information is there that the community cares about, that we have the proper drawings to show what we're communicating, and how that information is getting out, to make sure that it's understandable, that we're communicating the technical, because there are technical decisions that are part of this, but to make sure that we're communicating them in a way that the general population without that training can understand.
Councilmember Beckmeyer.
Councilmember Varlas, I saw you reach for your microphone. Would you like to have me go after you?
No, go ahead.
Okay. One thing on the pop-ups, I think it's the pop-ups, yes. I would like to specifically call out the business community in West Sharp Park specifically to figure out, hopefully, they're doing a thing. They gather together and do weekend things sometimes, tagging into the planning process for that around that time, not the day of those events, obviously they're really busy, but somehow really tapping into that community. And I would add to that community our nonprofit library community, who is probably the biggest employer down here, I'm guessing, besides the city, which isn't really here. But in this, So that was number one. Number two, thank you for the kind words. I was about to say the same thing. About you. All I was about to say, people listening in Zoom land. Mary Beer is the best outreach person we have in Pacifica. So, while I appreciate your kindness, and I will admit, when I go through this proposal, I'm like, yeah, that, because I did marketing outreach as my MBA. So all these strategies are things I'm like, put them into the proposal, that's going to be great. So I gravitate to that, I definitely do. However, with that said, I would like to state, I won't make a proposal at this time because we haven't heard from all the council members, but I would like to echo what Mary Beer said about sharing leadership. And in that vein, I would be willing to step back and allow another council member to participate with Mary in this phase. And that's what I wanted to say. I reserve the right, however, to push my button again.
Everyone may push their button as the spirit moves. Councilmember Vaderlaus.
Do you want to talk?
Oh, I was just going to say that. I was going to say the same thing. Like, I'm willing to step back because I think that we need representation from across the city. So we can talk about that as we move forward. Outreach can be done anytime. So I can do outreach. You create the stuff, I can go out and do the outreach. But as far as this goes. Anyway, just saying that. Go ahead, Councilmember Vaderlaus, sorry.
Thank goodness I'm not an outreach person. Anyway, I am so glad that you're sending a postcard to everyone because I understand the last time it went to Sharp Park, all of this area is important to everyone in the entire city, as well as all the people who come here from outside of the city who don't have any input because they're not paying. So I just think that's a really good thing. I think the pop-ups are all good. Like I said earlier, I went to every one of the meetings. The community outreach group that we had from the beginning, I don't think was too involved, or we didn't make them very involved. They just kind of went to the meetings. So I agree with you that I don't think we need that still, because I don't think that one worked. And this is going to be an interesting selection process. Thank you.
Seeing no further lights, I guess I'll ramble on for a moment. I don't think it's going to be as interesting as I feared it might be going into this meeting, since we have two very humble, willing to compromise council members at our dais who otherwise might fight for a position that they have worked hard to do a very, very good job at to begin with. And that being said, the point is not lost on me that we have a new voice on our council who should be spreading her wings. So I'm going to go with path of least resistance because as my brain is churning through all sorts of words that could be used to argue or justify or posture, I am grateful to serve on a council where we have people whom are very understanding and who are trying to be collaborative for the sake of our community so that our community can wind up being protected, safe, engaged, and do it in such a fashion that the least damage can be done to our environment simultaneously. So I'm going to put forth the opinion that I think that Councilmember Bowles would work very well with Councilmember Beer, and we'll start the deliberation on that point there. Also, if anybody has anything else to add about what kind of engagement might be helpful, please throw that into the mix. Agree, disagree? Someone want to make a motion?
Well, I'm going to, no, don't make a motion yet. I think two different styles are really necessary. And so that's why I think that the technical outreach, I don't know, what you bring to the table, Councilmember Beckmeyer, I think is important, because there's a balance that can happen, and I think you and Christine can hold that balance well. And so that's how I really feel, and so it would be my motion that you would actually serve on the committee with Christine, because I think it's a smart balance.
So I'm going to articulate a little bit why I think Councilmember Bowles and Beer would make a good pairing. And specifically, it's because Councilmember Beer has articulated so succinctly and adeptly a great deal of frustration that I think is shared by some of those upon our dais who have already been going through this process. And you know, I share many of the concerns you articulated in a fashion that I did not want to try to put into words. And beyond that, I think that by articulating that, what you demonstrate as you're already communicating effectively with Councilmember Bowles is that as you have already a robust understanding from engaging in the first part of this process what the purpose of this process is, I think that you being able to communicate that effectively along with Christine's desire to make sure that the community feels heard and gets what they need in order to participate in the best way possible. I think what I'm already hearing is that there is a mode of communication that can exist between the two of you that I'm already getting a sense of, and that's why I'm putting forth that recommendation.
I just want to add that I'd be delighted to serve with either of you.
Do either Sues have strong opinions or not strong opinions either way?
I just thought, it's one of these days I want to be on an ad hoc committee with you, because then it'll be really fun to have to go the Sues, and nobody would know which person they're actually speaking to. So we're going to have to work that in some way down the line. I just want to second what you said, and I want to just be honest. I think Mary Beer, communicator, organizer, educator, outreacher, you have a very unique and strong ability to lead with your heart and to say what needs to be said. You demonstrated that tonight. So, lady, I'm going to second Tiger's not really yet emotion.
All right.
I'm going to formalize it and make an emotion. I move that council people Mary Beer and Bowles be joined as an ad hoc subcommittee. I can tighten up that language if I need to, City Attorney. Very good. Do I have a second?
1, 2, 3.
Second.
I second.
The Sue's in combo.
Moved by Tiger, seconded by Suze.
Please vote.
If there's no deliberation, let's vote.
Oh, did it work?
Watching for one more button to vote. Bowles? Yes. There we go. And the motion to appoint Beer and Bowles to the ad hoc subcommittee passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. Thank you for all the hard work you've put in over years and that you will put in. Mr. Ryan Marquez, thank you for all the hard work you've put in over no less than 8 years. I cannot begin to tell you how deeply we will miss you. We want you back already, frankly, and you're welcome to reconsider anytime you'd like. And that having been said, we wish you so well in all your endeavors, and we know exactly how well you will do in those endeavors. Thank you for your service to our community.
And it's happened before. You can always come back.
Thank you.
Doors always open.
We're going to take a 5-minute bio break. We'll reconvene at 10:01. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that house.
battery was dying in the did you notice that? I push you don't use Aging council members to return to the dais. Oh.
Kimber finale. Yeah.
Bye, thank you.
Is she also a photographer and everything else?
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are reconvening at 10:03. This brings us to consideration item number 11, the 2022 Annual Progress Report on implementation of the 2015-23 housing element of the general plan and the City of Pacifica general plan. Proposed action, move to adopt a resolution approving the city's 2022 housing element annual progress report on implementation of the 2015-23 housing element and the 2022 general plan annual progress report on implementation of other elements of the general plan, and directing city manager to transmit the reports to the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, OPR. Okie dokie. Staff report, please.
That was written in there.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. I'm Planning Director Christian Murdoch, here to present the city's 2022 annual progress reports on implementation of the housing element and general plan. The annual progress report process, also known as the APR process, as the name suggests, is a report on implementation of the overall general plan for the city of Pacifica. The general plan, sometimes called the Constitution for the city, has certain required elements in state law and is allowed to have additional optional elements that allow a community to focus the contents of the general plan to a specific set of community needs. The housing element component of the annual progress report is special. We'll talk a little bit more about that on the coming slides. The annual report for both the housing element and general plan components is due to the state by April 1st. It requires that the city provide a public comment opportunity before the city's legislative body, i.e. the city council. And as mentioned, the report's required by state law, and it must be submitted to the California Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD, and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, or OPR. We'll start with the housing element, APR. It is required to be on a form prepared by HCD. That is why it is somewhat like a vision test when you try to read it, because they require you to pack in an awful lot of information into very teeny tiny cells and rows when printed at this type of scale to be in a packet. So I apologize. We've tried to make it more accessible over the years, putting it in PDF form so you can zoom in and move it. It's not great. I'm sorry. If you have questions, let me know. Various tables are in the APR, and they're required to cover a variety of subject matter related to housing, particularly to demonstrate the city's compliance with various housing statutes, including applications submitted and deemed complete in the reporting year, status of projects approved through certificate of occupancy. In other words, the state's trying to track the progress of projects from when they're initially approved by cities all the way through to their completion when they receive certificates of occupancy and can begin to operate as housing units. The report is also required to indicate overall progress towards meeting the city's regional housing needs allocation, or RHNA. It's supposed to discuss implementation of other programs in the housing element and miscellaneous other items, many of which are too specific for Pacifica and aren't applicable, and so you'll see a number of blank tables within the city's APR. It's important to note this is the final reporting year for the fifth cycle RHNA. That covered the period from January 2015 until January of this year, 2023. And so we'll have some conclusions for that period in just a moment. And then also, as City Manager Woodhouse indicated earlier, the draft housing element for the sixth cycle, which will cover us from 2023 to 2031, is now available on planpacifica.org for public review and comment. As mentioned, there are a number of tables in the housing element APR. Folks that are interested, or if the council has questions, they can dive into it. For tonight's staff presentation, I really just wanted to cut to the heart of what most people care about when they're looking at the APR or talking about housing elements generally, and that's the city's progress in achieving its RHNA. As shown here, the city has produced, or rather approved, through the building permit stage, 214 housing units from January of 2015 to January of 2023. That's slightly more than half of our RHNA. Most of those units, 136, were approved in the above moderate income category. And to just briefly touch on it for those that are less familiar with housing elements and the RHNA, the city receives an allocation from the state, trickled down through the regional planning body called the Association of Bay Area Governments that indicates the number of housing units the city needs to accommodate and enable approval of over the 8-year period, split apart by income levels from above moderate, which is, multimillionaire income levels, if you will, all the way down to very low income levels, which are people making 30% of the area median income. People in very difficult financial circumstances with very challenging, opportunities to find housing in this area, which is very expensive. Of note, we've only achieved 44 out of our 68-unit low-income RHNA, and so again, a very low level of housing production relative to the community's needs, and we didn't meet our RHNA for any income level, including above moderate. Other key observations contained in the housing element APR include that, again, ADUs were the greatest share of approved housing units in 2022, 87% of total housing units approved through the building permit phase. The overall level of housing approvals was low, 55 units for the reporting period. However, while it's low, it's gotten better. The last 2 years, so 2021 and 2022, were both more than double the next best years out of the RHNA 5 cycle. Overall, as I mentioned, Pacifica achieved 52% of its RHNA for the 8 years of this housing element period, and approved only 44 units affordable for lower income families and none for very low income or extremely low income families. Next, I'll shift to the general plan APR overall, in other words, the non-housing element components of the general plan. The City Council adopted the 2040 general plan in July of 2022. That was a comprehensive update to the city's 1980 general plan, which had been in effect for more than 40 years. This APR focuses on the 2040 general plan, given that's the general plan that's currently in effect at the time of the reporting. The general plan includes 8 elements, excluding the housing element, which we'll talk about on subsequent slides. But before doing that, I did want to highlight the fact that during the general plan update process, the City Council determined that this annual progress report should be an important opportunity for the public to provide feedback to the City Council on how things are going with the general plan, what's working well, and more importantly, what's not working well from the community's perspective. And as part of that, the City Council committed to having this annual progress report earlier than we normally would have it. As mentioned, the deadline's April 1st, and so there are other opportunities in March to bring this, but the council decided that this report should come early so that any feedback from the public on general plan implementation or issues with the general plan could be brought up during the city's annual goal setting and strategic planning process. And so this is the first year where we've made that change. Required staff to work very quickly from the end of the year to present, but we did it, and we're proud of being able to support that opportunity for the public and for the City Council to hear any feedback. As we get going here on the general plan non-housing element components, there's no reportable action in the land use element and the noise element. But major progress was made in the half of the year that the new general plan was in effect on the economic sustainability element, reflecting the city's focus on economic development in 2022. These included components of the Sharp Park specific plan, the Shop Pacifica campaign, the Blues and Brews event, and the Economic Opportunity Study and Vision 2025 processes. For the economic sustainability element and all the other ones reporting on tonight, the report that's in the agenda packet has the specific policies in the general plan. To make this a little more digestible tonight, I didn't put all the text and so forth on the slides, but there's detail on what the policies call for and the specific actions that the city took. Important progress was also made on other elements, including the community design element. Again, components of the Sharp Park specific plan satisfied some of those policies. Utility undergrounding, as required through the new building code update, also advanced some of those community design policies. The open space and community facilities element, the parkland dedication and in lieu fees update that the City Council approved, advanced some policies related to that element, as did the Civic Center renovation project to improve the city's civic facilities. On to the conservation element, the City Council's update to the tree protection ordinance advanced important policies of the conservation element, as did the building electrification or REACH codes that the City Council approved as part of the building code update for new construction. And then lastly, the safety element, the expanded geotechnical hazard review required in the local amendments as part of the building code update process also address some of the safety considerations and policies in the safety element. So with that, summary of the housing element and general plan APRs, staff recommends that the City Council adopt the resolution contained in the agenda packet to accept those reports and to direct the city manager to transmit those reports to the requisite state agencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Murdoch. I want to start by giving you a robust thank you. It was really important to us that we have this prior to the general plan, the goal-setting session, and appreciating the robust housing element process you and your department have been engaging in, let alone quarry reclamation, let alone having to look at LCLUP on a moment's notice, and everything else going on, which is not the big picture item, which we don't hear on a constant basis. Thank you so much for making sure that this got to us before goal setting. That having been said, do we have questions? Councilmember Bowles.
I just want to echo your comments. I'm really appreciative of this coming now before goal setting and before our discussion on the next housing element, so we can learn from the last 8 years. So I do have a list of questions, and it's really because I'm trying to understand how we can try to build more affordable housing, because we really, for whatever reason, we haven't been able to do that, especially in the very low and low categories, and it's just a deep need of our city. And I know that some of, there's a lot of the implementation measures that weren't necessarily done, and a lot of that's because you are working so hard on so many other priorities, and we have not, prioritized and funded planning positions to be able to accomplish, those measures and those goals. So I think that's something we have to think carefully about as we go to goal setting. Going to questions, not. But anyway, I just want to thank you. So packet page 158 says, and I'll just ask these one at a time, and so we don't get lost, but the land use element says no reportable action on implementation. But I know we've done a lot in the general plan update to rezone and increase density and height in some areas as part of both the general plan and the Sharp Park specific plan. And it seems like those would be good things to convey, that we have been doing the work to try to bring more housing in, in the future coming forward.
Sure. I think the perspective I took in preparing the report was those were the baseline components, and when we take actions to actually implement zoning to effectuate the general plan or approve projects of note that might achieve those objectives in the land use element, that those would likely be the types of activities that would be reported under the land use element. But the land use element itself, just like the other policies and the other elements themselves, aren't necessarily reportable actions. Through the framework I used to prepare the report.
Okay. And then, so on packet page 168, it talks about the deed restricted units, and that, so in these 4 years, we've only approved 4 units that were deed restricted. And just for me and the public, I was wondering if you could explain the difference between deed-restricted properties and non-deed restricted properties, especially in relation to affordable units.
Certainly. So most often, deed-restricted affordable housing units will arise through the city's below-market rate inclusionary zoning program. That's the 15% of units of a market rate project of 8 or more units that need to be set aside at affordable income levels under city ordinance. Those are required to have legal instruments and mechanisms that set aside those units, under the law and recorded against the property to require that in the event the property is sold or transfers ownership or what have you, those units are set aside at the designated income levels for the prescribed period, typically 45 or 55 years, depending if they're ownership or rental housing units. Non-deed restricted units could come up in any other way that identifies and sets them aside for affordable housing purposes, but doesn't have the same set of legal parameters that are recorded against the deed or recorded against the property. The example from this report, shown in 2021 and 2022, is a really important and exciting outcome for the city, and those are affordable units created at the Villages at Pacifica apartment complex, pursuant to the affordability agreement that the City Council authorized back in November of 2020, I believe. However, due to just the parameters of the law and the process that was used, those are not deed-restricted affordable housing units for purposes of this report, even though they are affordable housing units that are restricted to affordable levels using that other mechanism, in this instance, the affordability agreement.
Okay, so there's not a chance that the owner of that project could go back and decide that they want to rent those at market rate?
Not during the term of the affordability agreement.
Okay.
Correct.
And how long is that? Just
Oh, geez.
or approximately?
Approximately 20 years, I think, maybe slightly shorter than that, and then there's an option to renew.
Okay. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Councilmember Bowles, do you mind if I jump in and ask
no,
a
no.
question in the
Please
same
do.
vein? And actually, since that particular project was brought up, do you know if the ADUs, are those considered low or moderate, or do you know?
So the affordability agreement requires that all units that existed at the time of the execution of the agreement and any future units constructed on the property to be restricted to 80% of area median income, which corresponds to the low income level. At the time of executing the agreement, there were 170 units on the property. 168 of them were set aside for low income occupants, 2 for managers' units. And the property owners then contemplated constructing ADUs as allowed by state law on multifamily properties and carried through with that in 2 phases. The first phase in 2021 of 20 ADUs and the second phase in 2022 of 22 ADUs. And so a really great outcome on top of what the City Council committed in terms of city resources and support for the initial 168 units, and then a bonus of 42 more ADUs that will now also be restricted to 80% AMI for low-income families.
And you said that's at the low level.
Correct.
So 44 out of 68 were created, if I'm reading this right, there were 68 units that our previous RENA told us we should be creating of low housing, and of those we got 44, but 42 of them were from the, what I'm getting at is we would have had 2 units of low-income housing created if not for that particular.
Yes.
And I originally wanted to ask my question because we had 0 units of 121 very low, which I'll use the word bothers me. And so I definitely want to think in terms of how our city might be able to incentivize developers to create the very low income level. But my question is, and it might actually not pertain to this, and so the question is, what is the proper time to talk about maybe raising the percentage of our inclusionary ordinance? And when we do a deed restriction on that inclusionary ordinance, making it in perpetuity rather than capping it at 55 or whatever, is there a process coming down the pike where it'll naturally fit, or is that one of those things that we need to discuss at goal setting?
So I'm very careful to not turn this into a discussion of the draft housing element because that's not what's on the agenda, but I will say briefly that among the programs that staff has put into the draft housing element is to revisit the city's below market rate zoning ordinance and to explore opportunities to either increase the percentage or make other modifications that might incentivize deeper affordability but at lower shares of units, and some combination of new options or new tools to achieve the City Council's desires. A lot of work needs to go into that, but that would be the first opportunity in discussion of the draft housing element on March 21st at the study session to say, okay, this looks and feels like the right range of things to consider or let's change or add this, and then we can program that into a plan, as Councilmember Bowles mentioned, if properly staffed and resourced to actually carry out that housing element implementation work, which I sense year after year increasingly is important to the City Council and may be something that becomes a priority for future years with the new housing element.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Councilmember Bowles.
Yeah, just a couple more. On packet page 171, the action item 4 talks about encouraging preservation of the mobile home park as an important source of low and moderate income housing. And the notes say that it has been preserved, but my understanding is that when the park was remodeled a few years ago, the rents were raised substantially. I have several, I was knocking on those doors and talking to those people. And I was looking at Zillow today, and a 2-bedroom, 900 square foot home was renting for $3,500. So it seems like, and I actually counted about 86 units in that complex. So it seems like we might have lost a fair bit of affordable housing.
So I think it's important to remember the time in which this was drafted. This was drafted in late 2014, early 2015, before that substantial park renovation. And so at the time, it absolutely was providing what's called sometimes naturally affordable housing, where the rents on their own, for whatever reason, are at levels that are affordable to people with low and moderate incomes. That was the case, in my understanding, as we drafted this at that time frame. Shortly after the housing element was adopted, the landlord undertook evictions and significant park renovation and increased rents based on information that I understand. And so it may not be the case that it provides that same function for the community any longer.
Okay, so the report just says the housing has been preserved, but it doesn't really address the affordability. Maybe it's not needed to report that, but it just
Right.
looks like a missing piece.
Well, I think the city's tools to do that, are limited. And so whatever tools the city may have had weren't used at the time. And more importantly, from sort of the state housing law context, preservation of mobile homes generally is important, because however expensive the mobile home park may be, very often it's less expensive than traditional site-built housing. And so they are generally, as a category of housing, typically more affordable, and for those reasons, preservation of them is encouraged under state law, and that's why that action program was structured and phrased in that fashion.
Okay. And then Sue DeGree had asked about housing for our disabled community. And I'm just wondering, other than the senior housing, do we have any housing in the city now that is specifically for or accessible to the disabled community?
I don't have full knowledge of that. I think there is a convalescent housing which may provide those services to disabled residents off of San Pedro Terrace Road. And there may be other limited facilities in the north end of town, but I don't have a full understanding of that housing type right now.
Okay, we can talk about that with the housing element. Thanks.
Any other questions from council? If not, we will go to public comment. I don't currently have any cards from the public. You're welcome to fill one out and bring it up if you'd like to speak. If you're watching at home, either on television or by the live stream, please dial 650-898-6965. Conference ID 383-609-442#. Press star 5 to raise your hand. Do we have any hands raised? I'll give that an extra minute. Sometimes folks are watching by live stream and it takes them an extra moment to get the message. No hands raised, no cards from the public, and no one seems to be jumping up to speak, so I will close public comment now. Bring it back to council for deliberation. Council, what is your pleasure?
I just want,
Councilmember Beer, I have a light from, please.
Oh, yeah, I think I would just like to make a motion.
No.
No?
can I ask one more question? Sorry. Sure. Or it's really part of deliberation more than a question. But so, we're looking at this to inform our goal setting, and one of the things that's talked about on around packet page 170 to 175, that there were new ordinances that were suggested in items 13 to 16 that were never brought before council before. And as we look at the new housing element, we might want other ordinances or funds or, whatever that we might want to consider. So I just like to understand kind of from staff what the process is by which we start to do that, because that's not going to happen as part of, I don't think that the time frame allows that to happen as part of the new housing element, right? Because we only have one short study session for comments. So just trying to understand how this would happen in the course of our next year if we wanted to delve into this a little bit more with.
Sure, and this might be a question that's better served by the housing element conversation that's coming up, but
that's after goal setting, so that's my concern.
okay. But that having been said, just like my question was about, here's my thing, when's the best time to have that conversation?
I can offer a thought or two. It's important to remember the housing element is I'd say, first and foremost, a compliance document demonstrating how local agencies are complying with the requirements of state housing law. It is not necessary for the housing element to be the be-all, end-all of things the city wants to do related to housing. And so, while a city can include additional optional activities related to housing in the housing element, once it does so, it's obligated to report on that, and it's held to account for failing to implement its housing element. And so there's a balance there between things that are required and must be done and will be done, and those optional activities that are related to housing but necessarily mustn't be done, that the city council can choose to do at some other point in time. And so one example would be to allow the housing element, as it's proposed, to demonstrate compliance to move forward, but yet to undertake a discussion of other important housing activities that could occur outside of the housing element as part of some other priority work plan or strategic plan item for the city. And so that's a decision the council will have to make, balancing all of the factors, including the time and resources and potential delay to work those into the housing element at this point in time, when it could also undertake those on a separate process and achieve the same outcome.
So I understand, and so this particular housing element that we're reviewing had certain ordinances that it brought forward to say that the council should consider. So did council inform those, recommendations in the previous housing element, or was that something done by staff?
So certainly staff prepared the first draft of this housing element that's subject to the report this evening and recommended that to the city council. There was public input in that process. I don't remember the particulars if the council at that time in 2015 discussed particular ordinances that ended up in the action plan. However, what I can say, and as you alluded to, Councilmember Bowles, priority and proper resourcing was not given to the planning department to carry out the work on many of those those ordinance amendments that were contemplated. And so that's, some feedback to take from this prior 8 years, for the 8 years that are ahead of us in terms of ordinances that could or should or may be worked on, in or outside of the housing element.
Christine, can you say one of those items for an example?
Yeah, let me just get to that page.
I think you said packet page 175, but
It's 170 to 175.
I'm seeing 173.
Yeah.
Are you
it's in
talking
that
about program item 13, 14, 15, 16, 17?
range. Exactly, 13 to 16.
Okay, so it's packet page 173 and the top of 174.
So one is amend the density bonus ordinance to reflect state law. One is consider amending the zoning ordinance to allow rooming houses and boarding houses for farm worker housing as a permitted use in the R3. One is amend agricultural to allow farm worker housing. And 16 is amend zoning ordinance to allow emergency shelters, transitional and supportive housing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Vattelaus.
One of the things about the housing element that, to me, is that we're allowing these houses to be built. Cities don't build houses. Developers have to come here. We can allow it. We can increase the height limit on Sharp Park to 5 stories, and that's great. But if someone doesn't come here and build it, we can't do anything about it. We can only try. We can increase our density. We can do what we can say, build on the shopping centers, but if someone doesn't come, it's not going to get built. And I know I've said this like 100 times, but Josh Becker does have a bill that's going forward to allow for our existing converted units to allow them to count towards our RENA numbers. And that will be very important if we can get that passed. It's a very important thing for the city of Pacifica because it's a lose-lose for Pacifica as it sits, because we don't get the taxes and we don't get to count it towards our RENA. So that's a really important thing because I can see more conversions in Pacifica than new buildings.
Yeah.
If we can convert hotels, we can convert some other buildings. It would make a lot more sense.
Absolutely, and my discussions with like Hart and so forth, they're really looking more at that than at building new because it just takes so long to build new. But the other thing, to your point about we can just rezone, but there's other policies in here, like I think it called for me trying to have roundtables and meeting with nonprofit developers twice a year and things like that, because we have to do more to encourage the people who aren't doing it for profit to come in and build and figure out what they need so that we can get things ready, to have them be interested.
Okay. And I have a whole thing on below market rate, but I won't go into that now.
Not unless you want to make a motion to extend. Councilmember
No, I do
Beer.
not.
What did you just say? You wanted to extend the meeting?
No.
Okay.
I want you to make the motion.
I was going to say no. Well, but if I could just say a couple of things. So like amending all these ordinances or bringing forth new ordinances, it's a huge thing, right? And so that would have to happen outside of a housing element. And so, yeah, and I understand like the attention towards farm worker housing. We all understand that. We also know that the county is working really hard on that. So we want to be able to make sure that if we talk about that moving forward, that we include them in the conversations. And then most of these conversations are for moving forward, right? So if there's a particular one or two that you feel very strongly about, you want to talk about it at goal setting, by all means, bring it forward. And yeah, I don't know what else I was going to say. I think I'm getting tired, but
We're going to make a
punchy.
motion.
Oh, I was going to make a motion.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. I move to adopt the resolution approving the city's 2022 Housing Element Annual Progress Report on implementation of the 2015 to 2023 Housing Element and the 2022 General Plan Annual Progress Report on implementation of other elements of the General Plan, and directing the city manager to transmit the reports to the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, OPR.
Mayor Pro Tem Vattelaus.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Director Murdoch, again, thank you so much for making sure that this came before us before goal setting, and we had the opportunity for that conversation, that the community had the opportunity to weigh in. I think we'll need to do that for at least a couple more years to make sure that we've got our sea legs about us, and those efforts are really appreciated and really helpful and stop lazing around and get back to work.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. We are adjourning the meeting at 10:38, and we'll see you all on Saturday, if not sooner, Friday even.
Tomorrow. Are you going to gavel?
Tomorrow, we'll see you all.
Tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow night.
We'll see you every day.
Tomorrow we have committee and commission.
I don't think I have.
No, I'm just saying thank you.